is the regular meeting of the New Canaan Planning and Zoning Commission today, Tuesday, May 26, 2026, my birthday.
Happy birthday, Dan.
Thank you.
You're turning 35?
35 again.
Yes. Where's the cake?
Yeah, I was waiting for one.
Well, I just found out.
Yeah. We've got a number of items on the agenda. I just wanted to let anyone know who's either in the audience here or on Zoom. We will be hearing the final vote on the 751 Weed Street application at the end of the meeting. We will not be taking any public comments. There will be no deliberation. This is nope. This is for the 751 Weed, this is a strict remand by the court to vote approval on that application. So just don't want to waste anyone's time if you're going to be waiting to speak. So moving into the regular meeting agenda here. First item, we have 63 Park Street. Upon application of Stephen Finn, Wolfsey, Rosen, Queskin, and Kuryansky, LLP, authorized agent for 63 Park Street, LLC, care of Peterson Management, LLC, owners, for a site plan approval pursuant to Section 63C3 to permit the Onero Foundation to hang 2 banners from the front of the building in the B residence zone, map L, block 18, lot 81.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, attendance?
Oh. Yes, you were right. We need to do attendance. Sorry about that. Where's my cheat sheet? All righty. Attendance. Dan Radman here. Krista Nielsen.
Here.
John Kriz.
Here.
Chris Herring. Here. John Engel, not here yet. Alan Swerdlow.
Here.
Tom Benton.
Here.
Eric Knowles.
Here. John Engel just walked in.
And John Engel is here.
Here.
Christina Larson will not be attending, you said? Megan Menching.
Here.
Bill Pratt.
Here.
Thank you, Bill. And George Danielos. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
George Danielos is our newest addition to the P&Z Commission as an alternate. If you haven't met George yet, feel free to chat with him after and get to know him. Okay, Mr. Finn.
Good evening, members of the commission and Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Steve Finn. I'm here representing 63 Park Street LLC and the Onero Foundation. With me to my left is Laurence Laforgue, Executive Director of the Onero Foundation. As you may recall, when we were last before you almost a year ago in June of 2025, the Onero Foundation is a nonprofit and was founded by David Peterson with the mission of increasing awareness and educating the public about historic buildings and architecture through exhibits, lectures, and other events. Mr. Peterson holds a master's degree in historic preservation from Columbia University's Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation. The Onero Foundation has occupied 63 Park Street now for a number of years and has preserved and restored the historic structure and gardens there and continues to intend to do so. Consistent with the special permit granted to it, the Onero Foundation over the course of the last year has held 1 exhibition and lectures and a few events at 63 Park Street. In June of 2025, this commission granted signed site plan approval pursuant to section 6.3, point C, point 3 of the zoning regulations for the use of 2 banners on the outside of the building to announce the inaugural exhibit and to show that Onero Foundation's connection to the building. However, the commission granted the use of the banners limited to the duration of the first exhibit on a trial basis and wanted the foundation to return after a 1-year trial period. In a moment, I will turn things over to Laurence Laforgue, who will provide details to you about how the last year has progressed, the next exhibition that is planned, and the banners. But before I do, I have a few specific points to make. 63 Park Street is in the New Canaan Historic District. I think you all know that. And the Historic District Commission regulates the exterior of all buildings within that district. On May 12, 2025, the HDC approved the permanent use of the banners with white and/or blue backgrounds. The Historic District Commission did not and does not require the foundation to seek approval for the placement of banners for new exhibitions. I also want to call your attention to an email letter submitted to Sarah Carey by Tucker Murphy of the First Selectman's Office on May 22nd, 2026 in support of the banners. And I believe that's been uploaded to the website in connection with this application. I do want to read that into the record. This is from Tucker Murphy. Dear members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, we are writing in support of the request from the Onero Foundation to hang banners on the building located at 63 Park Street. Tucker uses the acronym TDAC, which I know you're all familiar with, but for the record, I will identify it as the New Canaan Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Committee. TDAC believes that Onero's presence in New Canaan complements the array of current cultural attractions, while Onero also supporting economic vitality within the downtown district. Onero has quickly established itself as a valuable cultural asset to the community, drawing visitors, fostering creativity, and contributing to the vibrant character of our town center. Allowing tasteful and appropriately designed banners at this location will help increase public awareness of exhibitions and events, encourage foot traffic, and further strengthen New Canaan's reputation as a destination for arts and culture. We believe the proposed banners are consistent with the character of downtown New Canaan and represent an important opportunity to support a nonprofit organization that enhances both the cultural and economic life of the community. Thank you for your consideration of this request. Tucker B. Murphy, Administrative Officer, First Selectman's Office, Town of New Canaan. The last point I want to make to you before turning it over to Ms. LaFour is the last sign site application. I think the reluctance to approve the permanent banners arose because a few commissioners expressed concern about setting a precedent by approving the banners. If any of you have any lingering concerns about that, please note that your sign regulations specifically state that in connection with site plan approvals, that the commission should consider the use and other unique conditions pertaining to the property. 63 Park Street and its permitted use are unique. It is not a commercial or business use. It is really an educational and/or a museum type of use. Because of its uniqueness, I sincerely submit to you that there's no danger of setting a precedent, and your regulations give you all the discretion you need to address any concerns about setting a precedent. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions for me, obviously, please let me know. Yes, Mr. Engel.
How is this different from the banners that the Historical Society puts up for their shows throughout the year? They're also in the Historic District, I think, and they're also considered a museum, I think. And I think the banners you're talking about are also going to be event specific. Is that right?
There are two banners, Mr. Engel. One is event specific and another identifies the building as being part or under the tutelage of the Onero Foundation. And they've been up. There have been two that have been up and will be coming down or will have come down or will be coming down shortly in anticipation of the next exhibition, assuming we get approval.
So insofar as they're event specific, there's a precedent right across the street, but insofar as it's a permanent linkage of Onero Foundation with the building and the event, that's going to be a permanent sign in the form of a banner. Why not put a permanent sign up instead of a banner? Banners to me communicate eventness and temporariness.
I think we're trying not to reinvent the wheel. We sort of started off with the two banners, one identifying the foundation and one identifying the current exhibit. I think I don't pretend to be that knowledgeable about what happens at other museums and organizations of this type, but I do seem to recall that there sometimes is a banner identifying what the institution is that is sponsoring the event. And I think having that type of recognition in connection with the exhibition is good. I think it's name recognition. I'm sure most of you, other than what you've heard from us here at this meeting and prior meetings, probably don't know much about Onera Foundation. But obviously, Mr. Peterson has a goal and a mission, and he wants to make Onera Foundation synonymous with historic preservation. I'm excited to have Ms. LaForgue tell you about the next exhibition that they're planning to open. I think you'll find it very exciting. And I think having that connection is only good. And I don't see the harm really. Whether the banner says this or says something else, especially when it's for a nonprofit.
I'm addressing the point of consistency. I expect to see the fall fair banner in front of the Presbyterian Church. I expect to see the historical center, dress exhibit, events. But I was in Sarah's office when she told a business in town that their letters were 1 inch too large and they had to remake their sign. We take the permanent signs, very seriously. It just occurs to me that you could have that the Onera Foundation is more of a permanent sign, and that if you asked for a more permanent sign, we'd probably give it to you. But it's a permanent sign, but in the shape of a banner. So it just seems to me inconsistent with the other uses around if you ask for a wood sign with gold leaf and all that, we spent a lot of time here talking about, looking at permanent signs. The Onera Foundation sign occurs to me to be a permanent linkage, not an event-specific sign. And that's the only distinction I wanted to point out. I'm not necessarily going to vote against it. I just think, why not put up a permanent sign?
Well, I think part of we did discuss the last time we were before you, the idea of putting up a permanent sign on the ground. The problem with that is that there are beautiful gardens at this property. And we didn't want to block those gardens. I think this is a more elegant way. I'm no judge of elegance, but to my way of thinking, there's two banners. They sort of balance each other. I think it's very attractive, and I think it's eye-catching. And I think a sign that's lower, may block the gardens, looks frankly more commercial to me. That looks more commercial to me than beautiful banners that you do associate with museums or other uses, the historical society. So from my point of view, I think the banners are a really nice way of doing this. But Ms. LaForgue may have some comments for you on that issue.
Well, can we just ask a few more questions?
Sure.
Before you do the presentation? You good with that?
I'm done.
Okay. So I'm looking at the photograph of the building with banners. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it in person. I did pass by a few times to look at the banners, but for some reason I didn't notice them. I want to ask you about these specific banners. On the left, you have an Onera banner that seems to be all blue. It's very hard. The photograph is not clear on my screen. It's all blue with Onera at the bottom. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And on the right, you have America Abroad, and then there's totally unclear. There's a rectangle in here with some imagery. What is that imagery?
I'm going to turn that question over to Mr. LaForgue.
Sure.
Mr. LaForgue.
Hi, thanks for your question. It's
Can you just turn your microphone on?
Oh, I should have mine
Thank you.
on too.
Thanks for your question. It's an image of an artwork, which is a lead artwork in our exhibition. It's from an artist named Ed Ruscha.
Oh, yeah, I know his work. It's hard to see it here. So it's just the image of the artwork, and then it says something below it.
Yes, it's the continuation of the title of the exhibition,
Okay.
which is a presentation of works from the FAPE collection.
Okay, because my comment was if there was any text in that artwork, which I couldn't see, it would be just too hard for somebody passing by in a car to read. And my comment here is these banners should be as simple as possible, as straightforward. One should be able to glance at them and immediately know what you're about and what's inside the building. The second comment, which is nitpicking, I will agree to that, is that the banners are hung unevenly. So the banner on the right is maybe a foot higher than the banner on the left.
In the document we sent?
Well,
or
in the photograph that I'm looking at,
In the rendering of the,
rendering, it's a photograph.
It's a rendering.
it's a rendering.
Rendering?
Yes.
Okay. If it's a nitpicking comment, but those banners should be hung exactly at the same height.
And they are. And there's probably was an issue with the printing. The color didn't render very well. So I see some white. It should be blue.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm actually measuring them against the top of the columns, and they're very different. So if it's just a rendering, that's fine, but
yes.
the
Yeah, we would
commentary
never
is
put-
they should be
yes,
very precise
absolutely,
okay.
and they are.
and very minimal, or as minimal as you can make them.
Yeah, so we thank you for your questions and your comments, and they're very helpful. We will never put text on top of an artwork out of respect for the artist and clarity for the audience. Absolutely.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, a question if I may.
Mhm.
So Mr. Finn, just to be clear on what the ask is,
Fair question.
important, fair question. So you want to put up two banners. They will be 8 feet by 4 feet? Always?
Yes,
So the same, that size only?
yes.
Okay,
Yes, same
Okay.
size, same placement, same design system.
okay. So if there were a restriction that they be 8 feet by 4 feet, you have no objection to that?
No objection. I assume that if we wanted, for some reason, do smaller, we wouldn't have to come back to the commission, but
Think about, and
Then
the,
he'll say he can't read them, so you don't want to do that.
well, that's, I can read them fine. And in addition, the banners may promote the foundation as a generic charity, or a specific exhibition, or perhaps a future exhibition. You can choose among them as you see fit. Is that part of the ask also, sir?
If I may just clarify that both banners will only be up when we have an exhibition as a way, to your point, of signaling that we have, that there's something happening inside, that this building is open and that there's cultural programming. So even though the banner on the left does only have the Onera logo, that banner is a temporary banner that's placed while we have exhibitions going on, if
So-
that may help.
So there would be exhibition-specific banners. And as I remember, the original approval is that they need to be taken down one day after the exhibition is over, and they can be up a certain number of days prior to.
14 days in advance of the next exhibition.
Okay, permanent requirements with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, just wanted to clear. Okay, those are my questions. I think I always thought the banners were of high-quality material. I didn't see tears or something flapping around, which would be unfortunate, can create a safety hazard. I didn't see them as distractive or distractions. That's a heavily traveled road. Certainly safety and soundness or public safety is an issue. I didn't see any of that. So I want to be clear on that. So
Thank you
thank
for
you,
that.
Mr. Finn.
Thank you for that.
The rendering shows a plaque sign on the stone wall in front facing Park Street with an arrow and the street address on there. Is that the only other signage on site, or is there additional signage?
Only permanent signage on site.
And that was approved without conditions as part of the June 2025
Mhm.
signed site application.
And how long do you foresee this particular exhibition, America Abroad, going?
So our plan is to open on July 1st and to close on December 31st on about, it's a Thursday, so.
Great.
Probably the 30th, so we can take down the banner on the 31st.
Commissioners, anything further? Any questions?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I think it respects the historic house really nicely, and the designs are pretty clear when you zoom in on the PDF, so I think it's great.
We were hoping that Ms. LaFord could tell you a little bit about this next exhibition, because I found it very exciting. So, and you may want to hear about it in advance, but if you're ready to close the public hearing, I guess we won't object to that.
I know you have a lot going on, so it's up to you.
Clarifying the ask, so they can now build not only the size 8x4, but they can also do the same banner, Onera banner next year in purple, and the next year after that in yellow. I mean, they have the right to do a 4x8 Onera banner and a 4x8 exhibition banner forever.
Approval for blue and white from the historic.
Only blue and
district. Only blue and white.
No purple, no yellow.
No, no pink, no purple, no yellow, blue and white.
Okay, and so they don't have to come back. Got it. Just clarifying the ask.
We'll just go back. Now I see the individual renderings, which are much clearer. I was looking at the photograph of the building facade. And so the imagery is multicolored. That's, we're approving that, right? As long as it's an image from the exhibition. Works from the collection is at least here in, I don't know how to characterize this, pink, possibly? Are we approving that? Do we approve that?
We're approving the banner as submitted.
We are. So it's not just blue and white.
I
The
think
background is.
the
blue and
background
white.
is blue. That's what.
So the background's blue, but whatever is in the foreground can be any color.
Mhm.
Okay, I understand that. I think these are great too, by the way.
Anything further, commissioners?
There's no public comment on this since it's just a site plan.
Anything further, Mr. Finn?
Not for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Close this application. Do I hear any further comments or a motion on this approval?
Who's seated for Ms.
Oh,
Larson?
that's right. So seated, we'll have the regular commissioners, and from the alternates, we'll have Megan Mensching seated.
I'll make a motion to approve because this is consistent with the long-term plan of conservation and development as it promotes cultural assets in town in keeping with the town's interests.
I'll second that.
We have two. Okay, call to vote. Dan Radman, I vote yes. Kristen Nielsen,
Yes.
John Chris,
Yes.
Chris Herring,
Yes.
John Engel,
Yes.
Alan Swerdlow,
Yes.
Tom Benton,
Yes.
Eric Knowles,
Yes.
Megan Mensching.
Yes.
You're approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I
Thank
look
you.
forward to welcoming you all. If you haven't been already, which I just heard you have. Thank you.
Mic on.
Yeah, you can leave them on. Okay. Public hearing, first item we have is 178 Oak Ridge. Upon application of Jim Beal, authorized agent for First Presbyterian Church owners, for a special permit approval pursuant to section 7.7 to designate the property as historically significant in order to permit an increase in building coverage over the allowable amount by an additional 500 square feet to accommodate fully accessible handicap entrance ramps and bathroom in the 1 acre zone at 178 Oak Ridge, map 32, block 20, lot 52.
Dan, I have to recuse myself, so.
Thank you. Okay. So Bill Pratt, Bill,
He's on.
he's on.
Yeah.
Bill, you'll be seated for this application.
So, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
And
And one more.
one more as well. One for Eric and one for Larson.
Yeah, I thought Megan. oh,
Okay, so you're
yeah.
just seating.
Megan and Bill.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. I'm actually representing the church also as a member of the church. The request is shown in the announcement of the meeting, is to add a 500 square foot handicap ramp and handicap bathroom. The ramp is to connect a historic building built in about 1880. The property was acquired in 1875. The building was built shortly thereafter. And it was donated to the church in 1963. I'll come to this in a minute. In 1970, another modern building was added in the front of the property. And at the time, this was fully compliant. the current need, the over coverage that we're here to talk about today has resulted from the 2005 change in zoning regulations, which reduced the amount of coverage substantially. So I think you either have the charts behind me or hopefully you can see them on your machines. I'd also like to introduce Scott Herr, who's a senior pastor at the Presbyterian Church, and Keith Simpson, also from the church. So this building was originally called Linden Field. When it was constructed, it was acquired in 1899 by Miss Catherine Bliss, and then her niece later inherited it, I believe, in 1919. So we have two buildings, and I'll show you later a campus map to show you these two buildings, how this all relates. The historic structure was constructed about 1880, based on the 1875 purchase of the property, and the more modern sanctuary was constructed in 1970, thereabouts. The current coverage is 18,935 square feet, and the current coverage under the 2005 zoning regulations for 1 acre lots is 12,645, and we're requesting a 500 square foot increase in the current coverage. In 1963, Miss Bliss decided to donate the property in two tranches. One was the historic building and certain amount of property to the Presbyterian Church, and the second chunk was to the town of New Canaan for the nature. It became the nature center. So the property on the west side of Onoke is 100% surrounded by the nature center, and the only abutters that are not the town of New Canaan are on the west side, on the east side of Onoke. And as you'll see later, where we're proposing to do this ramp is not visible from Onoke. It's totally enclosed. Let's see, the next job this is the Linden Field as it was originally constructed. And then if you move to the next chart, this is a picture of what we now call the Bliss House, having been donated by the Miss Bliss. As it looks today, this is actually a picture from this winter. Next chart, please, sir. So I'm going to show you three charts. One is a current campus, one is the way this fits in the building, and then the third is some detail on the proposal. So if you can read that, but if you look on the right side of the chart, the line is Onoke Ridge, and all of the abutters, except the town of New Canaan, are on the right side of that chart. There is one spot which I'll show you later. I'll show you a picture of, looking in from the driveway of the initiative, where you might possibly see the door of this ramp, but that would this handicapped accessible area. But that is all you could possibly see would be the door. Next chart, please, sir. On this chart, the yellow area on the right is the Bliss House, as it's now configured to use for church offices, for classrooms, and for the First Presbyterian Nursery School. Starting at the lower middle stairs and off to the left is new construction that was added in 1970. And so now, for people to get in a covered way into this main meeting room at the top of the chart, you have to go up 4 stairs and down 2. So we found a way to cover up it's about a 24-inch rise by building a ramp in this interior courtyard and covering it and making a penetration into the other building. So it's very unobtrusive and out of the way. This space is right now just a gravel covered courtyard. So if you move to the next chart, sir, you can get a detail of what it is we're proposing to build, which is a ramp that conforms with the handicap rules, and proper turning distance for a wheelchair, and a handicap bathroom on the same level as the historic building. So looking at the exterior considerations, as I said, it's an interior courtyard. The addition is cannot be seen from Owen, and it's possible you might see the door, the one entry door, from the Nature Center driveway. So this is about as inobtrusive to the surrounding landscape as it and neighbors as it could possibly be. The next is a picture of what it would look like. One of our two entrances comes through. It comes in from the Nature Center, and this is the back entrance. It's really more of a service entrance. It goes to the kitchen and this handicap ramp. And if you look in them, there's a tree just in the center left. The door that we're talking about would be behind that tree, basically. So it's basically not really even very hard to see it from any distance. So to summarize, we would request a special permit to cover the additional 500 square feet. We want to do this to continue to preserve and extend the life of this historic 1880 building. And we would like to do it this summer because the nursery school want to get any noise of construction done while the nursery school is on vacation. Thank you for consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
Commissioner Chris, sir, could you talk about some of the materials to be used, especially the ones that would be visible from the outside?
I don't have any specifics on the materials. We're looking at some cedar siding on the outside of the very small outside of this, but it would only be visible if you went in a very peculiar area inside this courtyard to see it.
Okay, thank you. You're on town sanitary sewer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This is Commissioner Herring. Would the commission have to regulate the church's use of this structure if they designated a historic structure? Does this encumber the town with additional responsibilities?
So the only requirement is that you regulate any facade changes in the future. And I think, you know, if you were to go the approval route, I would recommend not regulating the front part of the church, which is the 1970s modern section. I would focus more on the Bliss House portion of the facade.
Okay, and the applicant's going to pursue the historic designation on their own accord, and
so this special permit creates the Planning and Zoning Commission's historic designation. So there's no separate designation they're required to get. It would be voluntary up to them to go seek other historic designations.
But the historic designation they're looking for here would be applied to the entire building, both the 70s front end and the older portion.
That's up to the commission.
That's up to the commission.
Yes, so they're using section 7.7, which is a specific tool created through our zoning regulations to allow dimensional relief in exchange for preserving historic structures.
Mm-hmm.
what's the applicant's intent? Was the applicant's intent to preserve and designate the Bliss House or the entire structure?
It was our intent under the 7.7, just the Bliss House itself.
Bliss House, okay.
Commissioner Chris, could you bring back the map again?
Sure.
Know exactly what Bliss House means geographically?
Yes.
If it's designated as such, you got to draw a line somewhere.
On the chart that you were looking at, it's everything to the left of the handicapped access ramp. There's like, can you put your cursor on it? You see that it's everything to the left of the center of that chart.
You can kind of see like there's the 1970s edition, and then the left one is the Bliss House, right?
Yeah, so I mean, that's the Bliss House.
Can you go back, Sarah, to that picture is also a good one. Everything the right of the picture is new, everything the left is old. on that picture she had a second
So
ago.
I mean, on the chart, is it, I don't know if people can see my mouse,
Yeah.
but where the N in addition is.
If you see that ramp coming up from the bottom or the south, where it hits the building, everything to the left is the historic building, everything to the right is new.
That's my question. Thank you.
May I ask, does this addition help you with your accessibility requirements for your parishioners? Accessibility, does it allow for your parishioners to get to the bathrooms without going upstairs? And is it ADA accessible?
That's exactly why it's being done.
Okay. Thank you.
There is an alternate route now, but it requires going outside, and that's not satisfactory for 60 times of the year.
Okay, thank you.
And is there, in that existing courtyard that is being taken up by this new addition, is there any particular equipment or anything that exists there today that needs to be relocated to a different part of the site?
The only thing that's being relocated is, you see, you think of mechanical unit. It is the one side of a split heat pump unit that provides heat and cooling to a choir room. It's being moved about 12 feet.
Still staying in that area?
Same area.
Any other equipment is being relocated to a different part? Okay.
So I think this all makes sense. You clearly have a historic building here has value, cultural value to the community in terms of what Miss Bliss did both during her time there and then with the donation of the land afterwards. And looking at section 7.7, the only thing, and I also think, you need relief from the coverage requirements. This would obviously give you that in a way that's minimal. You're only looking for a minimal addition. So the only thing that I thought might be needed that wasn't included in the application under 7.7, it says a survey map and other documentation showing whatever, we have the survey. The other thing was accurate exterior elevations or photographs of each side of the historic structure proposed to be preserved. I assume that's something you could get the town.
It's pretty simple to do. It didn't look like it was directly relevant to this particular thing. We're coming up 24 inches or so on the ramp elevation wise.
Oh, no, I think what we need is pictures of the outside of the building we're deeming historic
Of
so
the
that
Bliss House.
we can make sure that any changes.
I did put one in there. I showed one.
Yeah, so I think, I think
Yeah.
that's my only
Okay.
condition of approval so that we can track any changes in the future to the exterior.
Wanda, because historic designation gives the commission the power to control changes to the exterior, we need to know the status quo now so that we can understand what changes may be made.
We can provide additional pictures. It's an interesting little footnote. If this ramp were not covered, it wouldn't have required a square foot addition because the exterior ramps are not counted as coverage. And that didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And that's basically why we're here.
Okay, commissioners, anything further? Okay. Anything further on your side?
Okay, no, Dan, thank you.
This is a public comment item, correct?
Yes.
So do we have anyone in the public that would like to hear at the town hall meeting right now in person that would like to speak to this application? Is there anyone in Zoom land that would like to speak to this application? So no. Okay, if you're good, then we'll close the application. Thank you. Can we vote now or wait?
Yes, you can vote now if you want.
Commissioners, any further deliberation or comments? I mean, I personally, I don't think this is a huge lift in terms of what the ask is here. it's a code compliance issue for the building, and it's nested into a portion of the building that is completely obscured and hidden, without adversely impacting anything to do with the rest of the Bliss House or the existing structure on the church. So pretty straightforward, but
I would add, Mr.
open to
Chairman,
comments.
that it enhances the use of the structure
Mhm.
and therefore supports community activity in an important building in town.
Agreed. Do I have a motion from anyone?
I'll move. This is Commissioner Chris. I move we approve the application. It is the materials to be used are of high quality, and the exterior changes will be unobtrusive. In addition, the ramp and the toilet facility will enhance use of the structure, supporting community activity, and such is consistent with our plan of conservation development.
Do I have a second?
With the addition that they supply pictures.
Yes, sir. That they will
Exterior elevations
elevations of
of
all
Bliss House.
that's the 4 cardinal points
Mhm.
will be supplied to Miss Carey. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
And just for clarification, part of this approval, the designation that it's strictly the Bliss House that we are designating as historic.
Yes, this be only for the Bliss House, not the rest of the structures
Agreed.
on the Presbyterian Church property.
Agreed.
And
Maybe you want to draw that on the survey when you submit the pictures, just resubmit the survey and just
I'll
kind of
I'll provide that.
highlight the
provide
Bliss
that to
House
Sarah.
portion.
Very clear.
Go ahead.
And staff mentioned that in your letter, Sarah, that standard condition that approval be required for any further elements. Do we need to incorporate that into the approval, or is that implicit in the reg?
Incorporating it into the approval just so that way it's on the deed in the event, that comes up.
Are you adding that to your?
I will add that as Commissioner Herring notes.
So as a standard condition of the approval under this regulation, any future facade changes to the preserved structure shall require approval from the P and Z Commission. That's the way staff is articulated.
Agreed. Any further comments? I had a motion. I had a second. Tom seconded.
Second.
Call to vote. Dan Radman, I vote yes. Krista Nielsen,
Yes.
John Chris,
Yes.
Chris Herring,
Yes.
John Engel,
Yes.
Alan Swidlow,
Yes.
Tom Benton,
Yes.
Eric Knowles,
Recused.
Eric's set out. Megan Menching,
Yes.
and Bill Pratt.
Yes.
Okay, you're approved. Thank you.
Yes.
Your time.
Two applications, 45 minutes. I think we're on a roll. One more.
Oh, you just jinxed us. Next application, number 3 on the agenda here, 1313 Smith Ridge Road. Upon application of Dean Pushler, authorized agent for Brian and Jennifer Garrett, owners, for a special permit approval pursuant to section 34C6 to allow construction of a swimming pool and patio in the front yard, 54 feet from the front property line in the 4-acre zone at 1313 Smith Ridge Road, map 41, block 102, lot 22. they on
He's
Zoom?
on Zoom.
Hi, do we have someone on Zoom for representing this application?
His name's right
Sorry about that. My camera was off. Yes, my name is Dean Pushler, landscape architect. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. This is 1313 Smith Ridge Road, the Garrett residence. This is a request for a special use permit. So the property is a flag lot, and due to the access, can I share my screen?
Yes, you have permission to.
Okay. So here's the property. Smith Ridge Road is to the west, We have an access way that enters the property from the west, and therefore the front property line is that western property line, although the house does face north. So that's why we're here today. The pool will be in essentially the backyard of the house, but it is technically the front yard of the property. We have the septic system, which pretty large septic system in the backyard. And we have a 25-foot setback from that septic system that pushes the pool towards that front yard. The other area of the properties are wooded and much lower in elevation. So this is the preferred location for the swimming pool. We do have a well in the front yard as well. So we're really requesting permission per section 34C6 of the zoning code.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, any questions?
Has he approached or have we heard from the neighbor, the only neighbor affected?
They submitted letters. We haven't received any letters for or against the application, and I'll note that that property has a swimming pool 40 feet from that same property line. So
Neighbor that is on
directly in the
Smith Ridge.
front. Yeah.
So wait, so just so I'm clear, why can you not put it on the eastern side where I assume you would be?
It's a slope.
Here.
Too
Steep
steep
slope
slope.
and wooded.
Yeah, the grade slopes down quite a bit, and there's existing trees in that location.
I just don't see like a grading plan, but okay.
I did receive a phone call from Mr. Chen, who is the northern property owner, who was, when he got the letter in the mail, he was worried that we were going to put the pool in the front yard, which would have been up here. So I assured him that it's where the pool is proposed. So he was fine with that.
Okay. And current position stays adequately enough from the septic setback, is that correct? That 25 foot?
Yeah, I pushed it as close as I could to that septic setback. We're probably 26 or 27 feet just to give us a little wiggle room. And so at a 20 by 44 pool, our current setback from that front yard or that western property line is 54 feet to the patio, 60 feet to the water line of the pool.
And as far as structures, it'll only be the pergola over on the south side and a fire pit area to the west?
Yeah, so that fire pit area is just a gravel area. No hardscape there. The pergola does meet the 75-foot setback. The patio does encroach, but that's okay. It's really for the swimming pool or a structure.
Okay.
Sarah, does the patio deck count as structure?
Yeah, so the regulations say that any patio that is attached to the pool coping has to meet setback requirements. If it's detached from the pool coping, it's not a structure.
So would that need to be added to this?
So so again, you have the 50-foot actual setback, and then you have the 75-foot setback to exempt you from needing a special permit. They comply with the 50-foot setback. Part of the pool and part of the coping, part of the patio and part of the pool are over that 75-foot line. It's all one and the same. It doesn't need to be further clarified.
Thank you.
Is there an existing site plan of any trees that would be removed?
There's no trees to be removed. This is a lawn area in here. I'll pull up a GIS.
Okay. Commissioners, anything further?
Commissioner Benton here, just to confirm the gravel fire pit area, you're okay if we put a restriction there that it is not to be paved over or extended into patio, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
And will there be any landscape lighting or anything, added to the swimming pool area for illumination?
Just the swimming pool lights that are in the pool. There's no lighting proposed at this point.
No area lighting or bollards or anything?
No.
Okay.
Can you confirm where the pool equipment will go?
It's just to the left of the existing garage, which is attached to the house. Right here. I don't know if you can see my mouse.
Yep. Okay.
So I do have an aerial pulled up. Let me see if I can share it.
It's going right here. Yes. That's a garage. That's right there. That's the middle.
So this is essentially where the pool's going right here.
Mm-hmm. That's the existing playset area.
Yeah, there's an existing fence so the pool is essentially going to be right where this, right over that fence. So that fence gets removed. Oh, just by the way, there's a heavy screening too. You can see here between the two properties. You can see the neighbor's pool.
It's going where the swing set is.
I think Commissioner Pratt has his hand raised.
Yes.
Yeah, just a quick question. Did you consider orienting the pool north-south rather than east-west?
Yes. So that was one of the concepts. They preferred the parallel with the house orientation over the perpendicular orientation. I think they believe that they thought it was more visible from the house versus the other orientation and closer to the house.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, anything further? Mr. Pushler, anything further from your side?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to this application here in the room? Anyone in the public on Zoom that would like to speak to this application? So double no. This application is closed. Commissioners, any further comments or deliberation on this?
Who's seated for this application?
We regular commissioners plus Megan Menching. I personally don't have an issue with this. Yeah, it's a bit of semantics when you're in a condition where it's a flag lot as to what's considered front versus side. But for all intents and purposes, I mean, they are in their backyard with this pool. And considering that the next door neighbor, their pool is slightly closer to the property line, not much to complain about on that side. I don't see it impacting any of the neighbors, and we've gotten no complaints from the neighbors. So, and it's a pretty straightforward location as far as siting and topography and positioning relative to the building.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say this is fine by me, but for next time, if their argument is that the topography on the east side it slopes too much, if they could provide some sort of grading plan or elevation plan, because we're kind of just taking their word for it. So
I mean, it's like I hear that point. My concern is like you're not granting a variance for this application, so I don't want the commission to fall down the rabbit hole of you would only approve an application if there's something like steep topography to, be the reason why you approve this application.
We would approve this based on their lot having a weird front.
So you're approving it just to confirm that it complies with the special permit criteria. There's no need for a hardship to confirm, anything like that. So
The only reason they're here is because they're a flag lot.
it's because they're in their front yard, which should a rear flag lot have a front yard for this purpose?
Okay.
Okay. Anything further, commissioners? Do I have a motion on this one?
I'll move to approve.
Reasons?
I think it's, again, because it's a flag lot, the front yard situation is confusing. This is clearly in the backyard. Based on the orientation of the house, it appears that it will have minimal impact on the surrounding neighborhood, and it's in alignment with POCD.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Call to vote. Dan Radman, I vote yes. Krista Nielsen,
Yes.
John Kriz,
Yes.
Chris Herring,
Yes.
John Engel,
Yes.
Alan Swerdlow.
Yes.
Tom Benton,
Yes.
Eric Knowles,
Yes.
Megan Menching.
Yes.
This one, Mr. Pushler, you are
Yes.
approved.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Good, bye-bye.
Wow. Approximate start time, 8 o'clock. We're right on the money.
It's your
Okay.
birthday gift to us.
Hmm?
It's your birthday gift to
Yeah,
us.
that's it. That's what it is. Just moving it along.
Good date, 5/26/26.
All right, next application, 30 Parade Hill Road. Upon application of Amy Suchins, McDermott, Reynolds, and Glissman, PC, authorized agent for GHF Parade Hill Road LLC owners for site plan approval pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes to construct a 14 residential unit structure in the B residence and half acre zones at 30 Parade Hill, map P, block 42, lot 852. Welcome back.
Just want to make a motion to approve. Good evening, Amy Suchins for the record. With me tonight, Richard Friedman and Brian Daly. Sorry, could you just turn on
Mics. Depressed kind of hard.
Better? Yes. Sorry. So I'll say that again. Amy Suchins for the applicant, with me, Richard Friedman and Brian Daly from Garden Homes. As we concluded last month, I think the goal was to close the public hearing tonight. We submitted some supplemental materials last week. I know there were a couple of neighbor letters that came in this morning. We did see the staff report as well. So we're happy we don't have anything else affirmative to present. We're happy to answer any outstanding questions from the commission. I'm not sure if you were intending on taking more public comment tonight, but I think what our understanding would be public and commission questions, and then we'd have the opportunity to wrap up. If you have anything else, we're happy to address that.
We were not planning to take additional public comments. We had taken those at the previous meeting. We wanted to give your team the opportunity to sort of wrap up the presentation and your argument in support of the application. We would then close the hearing and then go into deliberation on our side, with the hope that either we bone on this tonight or the following meeting, depending on how far we get.
Okay. So I guess the question for you is if there are any other commission comments regarding the supplemental materials that we submitted. If not, then our intention is then just to summarize and conclude.
Well, can we, do you want to call those up on screen, the supplemental materials, things like the architectural alternates, additional renderings, et cetera, just to go through those?
Sure.
Commissioners, hopefully you've had a chance to review these. We can review here as well on screen.
And I was going to say, our Derek Donne, our project engineer, is on Zoom, and David Rich is also here if there were any other questions regarding the housing collective or anything on the sort of the assisted housing issue.
Can I just ask a question? Just okay on that, just for my information. So you're getting, and forgive me if I'm misremembering this, but the representative from the housing collective said that they were flush with vouchers, right? That if you build this building, everybody's going to be able to get a voucher, and you're going to, basically be able to give one to everybody who needs one. Why are you only doing 5 of the 14 units for tenant-based vouchers and not all of them, if there is such a high demand for them?
You're the question. Why?
Turn the microphone on.
We're flush with vouchers.
Hold on, just state your name.
President CEO of the Housing Collective. I wish we were flush with vouchers. We always need more. As I explained the last 2 meetings, we need 3 things to create permanent supportive housing, which is the end and be all of how we provide sustainable housing and services for the homeless here in Connecticut. We need the voucher, we need the unit, and we need services. And CANs, or coordinated access networks, have been created to establish that coordination throughout the state. We do that as the backbone here in Fairfield County. So the voucher is a critical piece to this. What's even more, though, scarce than the voucher is the units. We just lack units where we can put that voucher and services throughout this area. It's why, as I explained last time, we had a great run for over 10 years of reducing homelessness every year. COVID changed all that. And a tight market here in Fairfield County came the tightest market in the country. We cannot find those units. And that's why we have families on the streets, which we've never had before. That's why street homelessness has gone up over 140% in the last couple of years. It's why homelessness has gone up over 40% in the last 4 years. We can't find those units. So if we do have vouchers, I wish we had more. We do have services. It's the units that we lack, and it's not just in the New Canaans. It's throughout Fairfield County and where we work throughout Western County. So as far as the 5 units, we might take more if you.
I think it's because that's what's considered the model. I would say you don't want all 14 units to be dedicated for people coming out of homelessness. You want it's better public policy to have a mix of people who are coming out of homelessness and people who are not coming out of homelessness and just need a lower rent.
Yes, some of the older structured initiatives we have are 100% homeless. I'm very fortunate, and I feel very fortunate that the state has given those resources to us. It's not my ideal. Our ideal is that no one even knows that the homeless are there, and that's why it's wanting to reduce the percentage of homeless in any unit, whether it be affordable or many of them are mixed income, or some are straight fair market rents. And my ideal is to have 5%, 7% in every development here in Fairfield County. So it's not pointing or stigmatizing a certain development. And we try to do it where the best case scenario is no one even knows that we have homeless in those units.
So the 5 units would be vouchered, and the other 9 would be subsidized through you, or how would they're just
income restricted. They're not subsidized. You collect less rent, which requires some kind of a capital subsidy, right, to make that number work. Mm-hmm. And the capital subsidy and the construction is coming from our foundation, and then the building is sold presumably to someone who's also working with
with some kind of subsidized capital. And part of the sale price, right, will be a contribution from us.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, Mr. Rich, just to be clear, I think I heard you say you're not flush with vouchers.
You've all read the papers. We see what HUD is doing. They do want to limit how many vouchers are coming through the Housing and Urban Development or through the housing authorities, and that's a big stream of where we get vouchers. HUD and White House also wants to tear down the whole way that we treat and house the homeless and have here for 20 years. So there's a fear of that. So far, we've been able to block that in the courts. We spent a lot of money and we've won, but I'm putting out there's a legitimate fear going forward is that we do have headwinds. And vouchers is, just be honest, it's a concern. I'd love to have many more than we currently have. But the most limiting factor we have here is the units. And I've actually advocated, I did advocate the last 2 years for the state not to put money into more vouchers unless we have more housing. It just increases the cost because these vouchers go to fair market rent, and then and study after study have shown that just increases the price for everyone. If you have a limited factor, in this case, it's housing, it's going to distort anything else in the market.
I'm still a bit confused. So in direct answer to the chairman's question, say yes, no, you are or are not flush.
We have vouchers for this, absolutely. If we're looking at general of what we need for solving homelessness here, we need more. For this particular development, absolutely, getting 5 is not an issue. But we need over 1,000 units, and with that, probably 700 vouchers if we're going to solve homelessness as we know it here in Fairfield County. So in that, I'm not flush. If you're asking, do we have vouchers? Yes, we have thousands of vouchers out there. There's a turnover of between 7 and 10% of those vouchers every year. So even if we didn't get new ones, and every year we have gotten new ones, there are vouchers for us to direct towards new developments throughout Fairfield County.
To be clear, sir, you just
so I would say yes, we have vouchers. If they asked if we're flush with vouchers, I wanted to be honest for you.
Which is no.
No, we're not flush. No.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
You're not flush in the larger sense, but in terms of what you would need to voucher the 5 units in this building. You already said it, but maybe you can say it again.
Yes, we have those vouchers. And again, I will say the limiting factor we have right now is not vouchers. It's units to place those vouchers in here in Fairfield County. We have more vouchers than we had 4 years ago, but homelessness now is up 40%. That's not from a lack of vouchers. That's from a lack of units to house the homeless. You seem to smile there, John. Commissioner, I don't seem to.
Is your mic on?
Excuse me, apologies. So just that the chairman's question was, are you flush with vouchers? And you said no. So I accept that answer, and I have no further question at this time. So thank you for being forthright, sir.
Mr. Rich, if we could just, again, because I think there's been a lot of back and forth. Is there any doubt in your mind as you sit here today that you have available vouchers for the 5 units that are proposed in this development?
Absolutely not. There's no doubt in my mind.
And is it also fair to say that your concern about being flush with vouchers is you want more vouchers than you could ever get in the current political environment?
Yes. Okay. My job and our collective job is to end homelessness here in Fairfield County.
One other question. If you had more vouchers, could you use them at this development?
I have enough vouchers for this development where we are right okay. now. Again, I say that's not the limiting factor, is finding units throughout Fairfield County.
So
And I'd be happy to explain that again, that homelessness
We've got
is a housing issue.
We've got it.
I sometimes keep asking questions here, but I just want to make sure that I'm
You're clear.
clearly understood on that one. Thank you.
Yeah, but to that point, Mr. Friedman, you wouldn't accept another 9 vouchers.
That's the other question.
Would I accept another 9 vouchers? Under state law, it's not legal to discriminate by source of income. So to the extent that people come for units and they have vouchers and they pass the screen, they can occupy those units. Are we setting aside more units for voucher holders? In other words, there's 5 units that are reserved explicitly for voucher holders and you cannot occupy those units if you don't have a voucher. No, I'm setting aside 5 for voucher holders. If more of them end up with tenants who have vouchers, then that's fine. That's how the state law works.
Okay.
Could you build this development if it was exclusively 14 voucher units only?
Could I build it if it were exclusively 14 voucher? Yeah, I could build it. Sure. I think that would be poor public policy, as both I and David have explained. And that's not how I would want to see this building occupied with tenants. I would not want to see it occupied with 14 tenants coming out of homelessness who all have vouchers.
Commissioners, any additional questions?
So I was just going back to your initial application and want to make sure I'm looking at the right table for this because I have the 14 units on page 10 of your initial application. You highlight 2-bedroom units, 3-bedroom units. And so the way I'm looking at it is you have 5 vouchers applied, 3 of which are for the 2-bedroom units and 2 of which are for the 3-bedroom units. And then you have 80% of AMI for 6 units, and then you have 3 market rate. Is that still?
That's the 10-point plan. Yeah, what you've just described is the 10-point plan.
Also back on the vouchers, I just want to clarify the vouchers. I understand, Mr. Friedman, you're reserving the 5 units for are the permanently supportive housing vouchers. Are there not other types of vouchers that people could come with, rental assistance type vouchers that don't come out of that program?
Pardon me, correct me if I'm wrong, David, there is no such thing as a permanently supportive housing voucher, right? There's a RAP voucher, there's a housing choice voucher, that's Section 8. So the source of the voucher is not tied to the permanently supportive housing. That's the MOU between the Housing Collective and the Garden Homes Fund, right? That they will.
Commissioners, I think where you're going here, that, I mean, it's when we talk about permanent supportive housing, we need those 3 things. We need the unit set aside, but we need some type of long-term voucher to create that and the services. And that creates the permanent supportive housing. And it's these 5 units that have those 3 things combined together to create what we call permanent supportive housing.
So I think Mr. Friedman was getting to my answer, which is the vouchers. I understand. I call them permanently supportive housing. I understand it takes the 3 things. The vouchers are actually from the RAP program or the Housing Choice program. But my understanding is neither of those programs are open right now. They've been waitlisted for quite a while. So the only way to get those vouchers is to get tenant-based vouchers for this project is to do something like permanent supportive housing that Mr. Rich is talking about.
Not necessarily. I mean, if you live somewhere else, Stamford, Norwalk, New York City, and you want to port your voucher into New Canaan, you can do that. So it doesn't. We have a relationship with the Housing Collective because that's a permanent arrangement, right? And they have functional control over the vouchers, but anyone who wants to pour it in can pour it in. So it's not just the housing collective, but for those 5 units, it is.
Okay. But so you would take somebody, if they're reporting in a voucher that wasn't through the housing collective, you would take them in one of the other units, like you said.
Yeah, I have
state
to.
law.
Yeah, that was the question that I answered from Commissioner Knowles.
Thank you.
I should know this. I don't know the exact numbers, but there are in this year's budget that was just passed, was it last week? There are additional wraps for the Department of Correction, I believe, and I don't know how many, and also for families with kids in daycare or federally sponsored daycare. And I think there are 250 of those wraps. So there are some additional wraps that have been allocated in this year's budget.
Commissioners, anything further?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, as long as the voucher questions have now been asked.
Yeah, I'm good.
We're good? Okay. So, Sarah, this question for you. On the architectural rendering page, there's a note. It says alternates 2, 3, or 4 are offered only as a condition of approval. In the event of a denial, the original design alternate 1 will be constructed. Is there an explanation for how this works?
Turn that over to the applicant. I did not put in that.
Okay, so if we deny, you still have the right to build alternate 1. Is that what you're saying here?
Yes. That if this is denied, we appeal, we prevail in court, it will be alternate 1.
So you have to appeal and prevail in court. Okay, that was
Correct.
missing from the phrase. So that's what I was basically asking. So once that's been clarified, these are the 4 alternatives I'm looking at. We had a discussion the last time about a number of things, including parking spaces. You have 16 parking spaces, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the question was why at the last meeting you didn't provide a rendering with all 16 parking spaces full as I had requested. You said you had never received the request. But you said since you received the request at the last meeting, you would do that at this meeting. Do you have that rendering?
We did not prepare it. I mean, we did not submit a separate rendering. If you look at alternate 4,
I see it.
Has most of the parking spaces full.
9 of them.
Correct. We did not do a separate rendering with a completely full parking lot.
So that was asked for, but you didn't do it.
Correct.
Okay. And that rendering was supposed to be done both in plan and in as a facade.
We understand that's what the request was.
So was there a reason why you didn't provide that?
Ultimately, we didn't think it was necessary for the purpose of the application.
Okay. All right. That pretty much satisfies the answers to my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Civil engineer comments came back, response to the Redness and Mead letter. DeAndrew's responses. It seems like all of the concerns have a solution. Is that correct?
That's correct. And if you want any specific follow-up, Derek is on the Zoom.
Okay.
And that's true of both. There were 2 letters, one that responded to Redness and Mead, and then an additional follow-up with the
town engineer.
couple of comments remaining from the town engineer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that I will note that the letter back to the town engineer did address the question that one of the neighbor letters this morning that was posted this morning raised about the camera inspection. That process is ongoing as was described at the last meeting. That's something that would be completed prior to the commencement of any site work, and that was acceptable to the town engineer.
Okay. Commissioners, any additional questions?
Looks like
I have one. My question is on parking. The chairman of the Housing Authority wrote in his letter on April 10th, citing that the single greatest challenge they have at the Millport, where they have 110 units, 55 are single bedrooms, and even with 122 total spaces, they don't have enough parking. Every one of the 122 total spaces is filled every night, and the 20 public spots across the street. And so I've been reading through some of the neighbor comments and about sight lines, and I think that can be corrected, and shrubbery and blight, and I think that can be corrected. But I think that it's a permanent condition whether we have adequate parking or not. And I wanted to hear your response to the housing chairman's suggestion that we need more parking, that this is underparked. I remember in the first meeting, I suggested that I would love to see parking in the back. And you said that was impossible because of the fire and setbacks. And I don't remember exactly why it was impossible, but it was clearly impossible. But do you have a response to his assertion that it's underparked?
Number one, we disagree. And that is based on, as we discussed a little bit last time, and we had the representative from who's the resident at the community that Mr. Friedman built in Westport, that they don't experience any kind of parking issues there. Similar composition of residents that we would expect to see here. The other issue that we have here is that, as we've conveyed throughout the application materials, residents will be limited to one vehicle. If that's not something that's acceptable to them, then they would simply decline a unit. As you've heard from Mr. Rich and earlier in the hearing sessions, we think there's plenty of available people who would be interested and happy to live with a one-car limitation. Some certainly expect that some residents may not have a car. So ultimately, we think that the parking that we've proposed is adequate. The site lays out to accommodate turning radius diagrams were submitted as well. So everything can happen internally on the site, and we don't think that parking's the concern that the housing authority is experiencing.
I hear your point about it may be adequately parked in Westport, but I know this site pretty well. And I'm trying to imagine that if I can't park on site, Parade Hill Road is too narrow for parking. It's now become a cut through and Waze and everybody else. So it's a rather fast and well-trafficked road, and it's rather narrow. They couldn't possibly park on Route 123.
Right. There is also a very significant right-of-way in front of this property and both adjacent properties. As you noted in the comment letter that was submitted with respect to the vegetation, it's about a 50-foot right-of-way in front of this. So to the extent that there is concern on the part of the commission, as we noted during the last meeting, town's free to make changes to the road, post it as no parking, require additional police enforcement, irrespective of what happens on the site. And ultimately—
I don't understand that. Are you suggesting that we need more on-street parking in front of this?
I'm saying if you think we need more on-street parking,
I think we need
or
more
the
parking.
near—
That's the solution?
You think we need more parking on this site?
I think that this is underparked.
And I would ask you to point to what evidence in the record, other than the speculation that is based on the Housing Authority's experience at a much larger development with a different composition of residents, what that is.
It's not speculation. That's his experience. And he cites Millport, but he operates several sites. He has the Millport and he's got the
And-
Riverwood. And his saying that his experience is one parking spot, 1.1 is, he has the experience that 1.1 is inadequate in this community and this walkability, not Westport, but here, 1.1 is not enough. is
And the
what he
zoning
says.
regulation for Millport is 1. We think it's entirely consistent, and we don't think there will be a parking problem. If you think there is a traffic issue, meaning what is happening on Parade Hill, that is within your commission's, I shouldn't say the commission, it's within the town's discretion. If you hear neighbors complaining about what's happening on Parade Hill, it's happening today. And so if you think there's a safety issue, this proposal has 14 units. When you look at the traffic report, it is a minimal. It's 4 cars an hour. It is not going to have a significant impact on what is happening on Parade Hill. Whatever problem you have on Parade Hill exists today. And if you need a solution to that,
I'm not saying we have a traffic problem on Parade Hill. I'm saying we have a
You're saying
Parade
you have
Hill
a
that
speeding
can't
problem.
handle your overflow if you're wrong. It's a very, very
we
important
are-
distinction.
And we have committed, as we've said throughout the record, there are enforcement mechanisms for that. Number one, we would tow the operator of the development, whether it was Mr. Friedman when it initially opens, or if it's a different nonprofit. It's a lease term. Cars are identified. They can be towed.
Okay.
You have enforcement authority. You cannot presume that we are going to violate a regulation or what we are submitting as a condition of approval.
I'm pointing out that we have no margin for error and you've got every spot occupied on the average day and you don't have enough room for the FedEx trucks and the Amazon trucks. They can't park out on Parade Hill.
No, but they
There's
have a
no
60-foot
spillover
driveway.
area. There's really no margin for error. It's a very tight parking lot for the 14 cars that you are anticipating.
Your question presumes that each of the spaces is going to be full. That's not necessarily going to
That
be
is the testimony
experience.
of the chairman of the housing authority that all 120 are full. And we can order a parking study if you like and study this further.
We have a parking, we provided the information,
Did you provide a traffic study or a parking study?
provided a traffic study. We've talked about parking. There is not a separate parking study because the development
I
does not
didn't mean
exist.
for this to be combative. I wanted to understand how you arrived at the parking. And you're talking about a traffic study. You're talking about sightlines and other things. I want to understand your ability to, what is the plan if you are underparked? Because I believe my experience is you're underparked and the testimony of the housing authority is that you're underparked. What is the plan if he's right?
Number
And it's
one,
not on-street parking on Parade Hill or Smith Ridge Road. Is it on-street parking on Heritage Hill? What is the plan for an underparked lot?
we disagree with the fundamental assumption that it's underparked. So I think that's issue one. Issue two, you are asking for a solution to a problem that we do not believe exists,
But you're
which is the fundamental issue. Your zoning regulations for Millport allow parking at 1-to-1, at one space per unit. We are consistent with that. That is
And
consistent
what
with
we're
our
telling you-
experience. And you are saying you want us to assume that we're wrong and solve for a problem that we do not believe exists.
So
It is under the regulations, under the statute, if you believe that there is a modification that is required to approve this application, that's your burden. Our position is this is adequately parked. The turning diagrams that we've included show that there is space for a fire truck, the dump truck, the trash truck. There is a 60-foot long driveway, an Amazon truck. Unlike what you've seen in the pictures from the neighbors or others, an Amazon truck, a FedEx truck can pull off Parade Hill. It can pull onto this site to deliver packages. It does not have to stand on Parade Hill. That is a fundamental difference compared to the single family homes surrounding the property. And I think when you talk about the concerns that you have about standing or these other vehicles, we have a lot of land and driveway before you get to the parking lot that does not exist in the surrounding area. And so again, we believe it's adequate. There's no reason, and again, back to the question of you want to assume that we are going to violate the condition of approval, that we are not going to enforce the one car, that we are going to experience something inconsistent with our application. You cannot use that as a reason to deny an application. And so ultimately, if it's up to you.
May I?
Yeah.
So to Mr. Commissioner Engel's point, I don't think it's a valid argument to use the Wilton Road example as substantiating evidence that it will work here as well. Wilton Road, you have 31 parking spots for 18 units. So it's at a 1.6 parking ratio there.
Mm-hmm.
It works there. We heard from one of your tenants, oh, it's not full all the time. We got that part, but it's got enough cushion there to satisfy the potential parking need at that location. With a 1.0 or 1.1 parking here, we are telling you that Millport doesn't work. Millport was built, whatever it was, 10, 12 years ago, ballpark. And in our experience and in the housing authority's experience and what has happened at Millport, we have a parking problem there. And what we're telling you is we're foreseeing the same parking problem happening here. So you have 2-bedroom apartments, you rent it to a single mom who's got a teenager that's 16 years old and they have one car. A year goes by, that teenager now has a car. You're telling me that they're not going to be able to park on that site?
Correct.
And you're going to ask them to move?
We're going to ask them to not have the second car. They know that as a term of the lease.
So that teenager needs that car to go to a second job after school, and you're going to tell them they can't have that car because...
Yes.
Interesting.
It is a condition of the lease.
Okay. So will you ask them to move?
It's their decision to either
That wasn't my
move.
question.
And it's the question.
Say, let
question-
me finish. If they say, no, I don't want to leave, I want to live here and I want my daughter to be able to park here, are you going to ask them to leave?
Again, I disagree with the premise of your question. It is up to the tenant. It is a term of the lease. If they don't pay the rent and they say, we'd like to stay without paying rent, if they're disruptive, there are terms of a lease that any renter complies with. It is a term of the lease. And ultimately, it is a question about whether or not, if they want to stay and they are obligated to only have one car, then that is a term of the lease.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Kriz. I'm looking at your parking study. Roman 4, page 3. It's explicitly 16 parking spaces will be provided for the 14 apartments, sufficient for this development in light of the tenant limitation of 1 space per unit. I've read that a number of times over the past weeks, and I just have a tough time wrapping my mind around the logic there. Maybe you can help me out. So essentially what it says is that it's sufficient because the applicant has said it's sufficient because of the limitation, as opposed to, well, we have 14 apartments of various sizes, as opposed to that driving the parking need. It's simply saying because there is a statement by fiat that there will be 1 space per unit, it is ipso facto adequate. And I just have a tough time with that. Maybe you could help me out here.
It's a term of the lease. I don't think there's anything complicated about it. It's straightforward. We believe that the 16 spaces are adequate. You can disagree.
I wasn't asking
And-
you, I'm asking, maybe should be to Mr., excuse me, let me scroll up here, just give me a moment. To a Mr. Kermit W. Hua, professional engineer, license number 22263,
Correct.
who performed this study. And what the gentleman says is that it's adequate because of the limitation. It says only because of that, because that's the only criterion on why it's adequate. And I just have difficulty understanding this. I've looked at many parking studies over the years in this position, and it tends to be, in all cases, well, we have this many units and this many bedrooms and different sizes of the unit, and that tends to drive parking needs. Now, there's some special issues such as handicap spots. You may need some extra ones depending on the number of units, and that's above our pay. that's a issue. But it doesn't say that here, and I'm a tough time with disconnect here. So
And you can have a tough I'm not trying to be disrespectful. You can have a disconnect. We believe that the amount of parking is sufficient. This commission, I know, is adopting the exception to the state law that goes into effect in 35 days. But if this development were to go into any other community, even without its assisted housing component, on July 2nd, no parking is required. That's public policy is shifting away, frankly, from the desire or the need for parking disconnected from the number of spaces anticipated to be used. It is true in the commercial context. It's clearly true under Connecticut law in a month and a half. And so your question is premised upon, we think we need a certain number of parking spaces, and so we're going to build an extra. It adds costs, it adds expense, it adds additional pavement that's not necessary. And so our position is there's a term of the lease. You are allowed one car. We still have two extra. The vehicles that need to move on this site, whether they are public safety or in essence, transient visitors who would deliver a package, we think it's adequate.
So it's adequate because that's what the determination is of adequacy, and that seems to be the answer. So thank you for the
Correct.
answer. It's because you said so.
And like I said, consistent with the law that's going to go into effect.
That's not relevant to
That's
this
true.
issue, madam.
It is, because if you're talking about what the parking demand and overall parking, there is a public policy that is going to affect in the state of Connecticut that says we need residential housing at such a grave level. And we know that parking requirements disconnected from the amount of use or anticipated use just drives up the cost of housing. The state legislature has implemented that policy as state law. And so I don't think what we're saying is irrelevant, because what we're saying is entirely consistent with where parking policy is in 2026.
In Hartford, but not here.
I understand you're doing something else, but again, public policy, state law.
Public policy and state law also provides for traffic mitigation zones, as I would assume you know.
Yes.
So
And I see that on your agenda for a couple of weeks from now.
as is our privilege.
Correct.
But I go back to the logic here, which still escapes me, and I haven't received an answer, so I'll let it
It's
go. But
closely refining what we expect demand and provided to be. We're not providing significant extra because there's cost to that. Not only dollars, how much asphalt cost, but to the question we were asked and Mr. Friedman answered at the last I guess 2 meetings ago. Additional parking means that more of the site's paved. It leaves less area for green space for people to be able to use this property as their home. And so ultimately, as he explained at that meeting, the decision was we're providing the parking that we think is adequate, and we're ensuring that the site is not overpaved, overdeveloped, consistent with providing green space and outdoor area that is consistent with what the plan is.
I posed this question because of I was perplexed at the sort of logic of this statement. I guess I will sort of live with that. So thank you, ma'am.
Welcome.
Commissioners, any further questions?
I'm sorry, I keep going on the parking, but I kind of have to.
Yeah.
Is it your belief with 16 units,
Mm-hmm.
people visiting who will drive there because there's no real blocking, that no one will ever show up and not have a space on property that they can park in as a visitor? And if that's the case, where would they go? Where would a visitor park who's coming to see a tenant?
Mm-hmm.
Where would they park if all the tenants are in their spots?
The remaining 2 spaces, I mean, we don't,
Hypothetically, let's assume there's a third person.
okay.
Where do they park?
We don't, again, this goes back to the premise of the question. We don't think that all of the spaces will be full based on our experience in this
Agree to disagree, but my
demographic.
question to you is,
Yeah.
where would they park? Because you said the cost of asphalt. I think there's a cost of safety and where someone's going to park. There's no easy place to park that's not on that property.
Yep.
Where would they park if a third person showed up? All the spots are full. Where would they park?
Maybe they can't visit.
That's your answer.
The tenants will figure out what the solution is.
Where do you think they would park? What's your best guess? If someone showed up as a third person, there's no spots, what do you think would happen? Your educated guess.
This is also my question, and I try, and he's so much more articulate than me, but I got to tell you, I know this neighborhood very well and every parking spot in it. He's asking the essential question because we asked you to, could you come back to us with more, with more thought on architecture? You did. And we said, give us more thought on vouchers, and you did. But this is the one thing where you haven't given us anything when we say, where is the buffer for these cars? Because if the FedEx truck and the visitor can't park on site, where do they go? And it's a safety issue. And you're talking about the cost of asphalt. I don't care about asphalt. My job is to make sure that your project is safe. So he's going to ask the same question I'm asking.
I'd like to hear your answer. Where would that third visitor park?
My answer on behalf of the applicant is the same place anyone else in that neighborhood parks when there's no room on their driveway. And for example, they can park on Heritage Hill Road. We've offered to connect the sidewalk from Heritage Hill Road to our property, so there's no safety issue there. They can park their cars on Heritage Hill Road. Parade Hill has all these other houses with limited driveways. Presumably, sometimes their visitors run out of space on their driveway as well. They find somewhere to park. Same thing that the visitors to our project would do.
So your answer is to park on the street.
If that's what they have to do, just like all of the visitors to all the other housing in the area, yes.
So I'd like to make a comment about this. I mean, it's become a tautological argument. It's true because it's true. And there's not much more we can ask about that because will continue to be the answer. However, you look at equivalents like Riverwood, with similar situation. There are 4 additional parking spaces to the parking needed by the residents. Those are always taken. And then there are cars parked all over the place when people come to visit, but they're internal because there's pavement involved. There's no pavement here. So what's going to happen here, I believe, to answer your question, is that the grassy area in front is going to be parked on all the time when people are visiting.
excuse me, as a condition of approval, we've offered to plant both sides of the driveway,
I
so
do
that
remember
would be impossible.
I don't see that in any of the renderings, though.
It's in words. It's in one of the conditions
Oh, it
of
is.
approval.
Okay. All right, so they'll be parked on the street.
Just so you know, we had submitted a draft conditions of approval list under public comment. The second bullet point is that we would agree to landscape so parking can't occur. And just as a reminder, that is town right of way in the front.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I remember you saying that in the last meeting. I just didn't see it on the renderings. But there's no place to park within the parking lot other than the assigned spaces. And people will be coming like they do to other developments in the community, and they'll be parking on the road. It's just a given. It's just, there's no way around that. That will happen.
Two comments, responses to things you've said. One, public policy in Hartford is adjusting. Yes, you're right. They're adjusting to put more of a burden on the municipalities to provide parking when the developers don't. And this municipality doesn't have a solution in this area to provide extra parking. And the other point, and this is an important one, when we talk about, well, what does everybody else on Parade Hill do? This is the only development like it on Parade Hill. So everybody else on Parade Hill, when they have, I guess they have a problem, they could park on their lawn. But we don't have the opportunity for 14 people to each have a visitor and park them on the lawn. They don't park on the Parade Hill. That would be a safety violation and they would get towed. Nobody is parking on Parade Hill Road.
Which is exactly the same thing that would happen here. Which was my point, is that if you're experiencing problems on
you don't
Parade
have
Hill,
room for 14 visitors on your lawn.
they do, you were just talking about illegal parking on Parade Hill. Number one, we haven't seen it posted as no parking. Number two, if there's a concern, it's an enforcement question. People are doing it now. If they have guests, as you noted, Mr. Daly noted, it is no different. That if the concern is Parade Hill is there are people speeding, it's vegetation in the right of way needs to be cut back, that's a town issue. And
those were not my issues, speeding. My
solve.
issue was whether you have adequate parking on your property.
Mm-hmm.
And you cited all the other single family homes up and down the road. And I don't understand how that's relevant. Because the multifamily at Millport that we are citing as an example in this town, the overage parks on the lawn. You don't have a lawn to park on. That's the difference between you and Millport.
We also have a lease restriction.
I would say the other thing that, just to understand the differences of sites here, that I think might be helpful. Have you visited the Millport location? So you'll note that has street parking adjacent to it. It's adjacent to the park. It's also adjacent to downtown. So were this development to be on Cross, Beatty, any of these other in-town streets, you'd have street parking. So it seems that developers found a lot that is in a residential area that doesn't support street parking. And so I think if you were to say this development were to sit 500 yards towards town where there's street parking, I think the concern would be lower. But I think what you're assuming is that the town's going to take a burden to essentially convert Parade Hill into a on-street parking? Because you just said that the town doesn't post no parking. So what I'm interpreting that to be is that you're suggesting the town should make Parade Hill an on-street parking street. Is that the way you're?
I'm suggesting that the concerns that members of the commission and members of the public have expressed about Parade Hill exist today without this development. And those are issues, whether it was the comment this morning about vegetation on the adjacent properties in the right of way, and it's not been maintained, not been cut back. Town, whether the neighbor didn't do it, whether the town didn't do it, whether it's other issues, those are all within the authority of the town of New Canaan. So I'm not suggesting that you post it as no parking, you post it as parking, whatever. It's a town issue, and how you want to solve your existing issues on Parade Hill that we submit we are not exacerbating. Because our position is we are not going to make it worse. And that's where fundamentally we disagree. You think we're going to make it worse. We disagree.
You're suggesting that a 14 unit increase would not make it worse than having a single unit.
Correct.
Okay.
Because it's, again, in the traffic study or otherwise, we don't think that it's going to be the combination of, if you're looking at it from a parking, the limitation on the number of vehicles that somebody can own, whether you're looking at it from a traffic perspective, and the number of vehicles that would leave the site are
the same as a single family,
are de minimis when you look at Parade Hill. It's 4 or 6 cars in a peak hour. It's 1 car every 15 minutes.
So assuming 14 people live there and their families, at rush hour, only 4 would leave in the morning.
The assumption is the peak hour, because you have, and it's true of any traffic study, you're looking at the number of vehicles that are leaving in a peak hour, whether it's a commercial property, whether it's any other multifamily
this is virtually a commercial property, right? Because it's 14 units on a
residential.
1/3 acre.
It's residential.
But okay, but maybe that's where I'm trying to just reconcile the math, because it just doesn't seem to fit 14 units being the same as a single unit.
I'm not saying 14 equals 1. I'm saying from a traffic perspective, I believe the traffic study, I can pull it out, but I believe the peak hour is either 4 or 6, depending on which peak hour you're looking at. So from a traffic perspective, 1 car leaving every 15 minutes on average, and not to say that you might not have 2 of those cars leave in the same 5 minutes, if you have somebody to get to school or somebody has to get to work or a train, whatever, but traffic studies, regardless of time, are based on peak hour trips.
And assuming, and this is kind of throwing a curveball at you, but assuming you're looking to kind of reduce the number of cars on site through the lease requirements, are you also encouraging other modes of transport? I heard the sidewalk, and I appreciate the continuing that strategy is a decent strategy. I recognize that. What about bicycle parking? Are you incorporating that into your designs? Because that is a effective unit approach.
Certainly, if you wanted us to add a bike rack, we could add a bike rack. I think the comments at the last meeting with the resident from Westport, a lot of the tenants, because cars are expensive. At the end of the day, even if you have a used car, you still have to put gas in it. You still have to insure it. You still have to do, maintenance and tires and that sort of thing. If you are coming off the street from homelessness, a car is probably not your priority. You might get there and you might have other tenants in the building, but again, we're looking at, based on what our experience is and what we think will be, the use here. But again, if you want us to add a bike rack, we could do that. We presume that there might be, you're my neighbor, you don't have a car, I have a car, I take you to the grocery store and we come together. So we do think there might be, I want to call it ride sharing in the Uber type of thing. Obviously that could happen, but we do expect that there might be tenants who, in essence, act neighborly to one another and, give somebody a ride or pick somebody up, grocery store, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah, do you want to talk? There's additional materials that were submitted regarding moratorium.
So it was requested by a commissioner that additional research be put into the creation of the 830G moratorium exceptions and that sort of law. So a bill analysis from 2002 when the statute was most recently substantially updated, along with a transcript from that same time when that bill was updated, was submitted into the record.
Gotcha. Commissioners, anything further? Okay. Anything further from your side?
Yeah, we're just going to wrap up a couple of things. Obviously, we talked about the public comments that were already there. We answered the question. I was going to highlight the comments about the different architectural options that were provided. So if you were inclined to approve the application, you can choose from any of the four. But we did want to make it clear on the record that if the application were denied, we would pursue the original design alternate one. Regardless of whether you approve or deny the civil and landscape plans, and I would note for the record, because I think there was another comment that came up, the landscape plans were prepared by a licensed landscape architect in the state of Connecticut, but those plans, both civil and landscape, were submitted for the March 31st meeting. Those reflect the town engineer's comments and are consistent with her comments at the last meeting. I think the one other question that had come up was, and we had submitted the document, whether we were going to, on the declaration of restricted covenants, make that, in effect, it's subject to all of the conditions in the 26-point affordability plan, and that we did note in the draft that was recently submitted, change the 40 years to perpetual. So if you were to approve, the deed restriction remains in perpetuity. It does not expire like a typical 830G would in 30 years. Or excuse me, 40 years, sorry. Doesn't matter because it's perpetual. And then I think the last thing, because it had come up during the course of the hearing, Mr. Friedman has indicated we will waive the sort of the 10-point plan, even in the event of a neighbor appeal of an approval. So all of the conditions that we had agreed to, but we would agree to the 26-point plan if you approve and there is a neighbor appeal. I know that there had been some questions on the part of the commission that, if you went ahead and approved and we were only committing to the 10-point plan, that seemed
they're all outlined in your
unfair.
Conditions of approval?
Yes. So I think the conditions of approval are all definitely outlined, as well as in the updated documents. And I did just the reference about agreeing to the 26-point plan is in essence new. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Friedman, who is going to give you a little bit of a wrap up.
Good evening. As a volunteer elected official in Stamford for many years, I know how much time and energy it takes to serve on a volunteer board. So thank you for your hard work on this application. I also appreciate the town staff and your peer reviewer provided professional and constructive reviews of our application. I'd like to speak about my motivation in undertaking this project. I am the second generation in a family real estate business, Garden Homes Management, an investment development and management company started by my father over 60 years ago in Stamford. Our business is and has always been to provide moderately priced housing in apartments and manufactured housing communities throughout the Northeast. 45 years ago, my father established our charitable foundation, the Garden Homes Fund, as a way to give back to our community. In addition to supporting the great work of dozens of area of nonprofits, my focus in recent years has been to use the resources of the Garden Homes Fund to address the housing shortage here in Connecticut. I believe the most effective philanthropy is direct, hands-on, and fills needs others are not filling. The fund's work on affordable housing and this project exemplify this philosophy. There is no ulterior motive behind this project. It is 100% charitable from conception to completion, and I hope my answers from the last few meetings allay all concerns on this point. To confirm, as a condition of approval, there will be deed restrictions that require 100% affordability, including the vouchered units, require this affordability in perpetuity, and require ownership by a nonprofit. Connecticut is short 100,000 units of affordable housing, a number so vast, the natural reaction is to throw up your hands and say you can't do anything about it. But we can do something about it. Change takes place on a micro level with decisions like this one, 14 units at a time. Nearly every member of the public who testified against this project prefaced their remarks by saying they support affordable housing. Having sat through many hours of public hearings on other 830G projects I have done, these sentiments ring hollow. If you really do support affordable housing, you don't need to say it. Instead, you figure out a way to make it happen. My sincere hope is to create housing for our most vulnerable and those who really need it. There are about 7,000 jobs in New Canaan, and the top 3 sectors, healthcare and social assistance, accommodation and food services, and retail trade, are service jobs with an average salary of $58,500. That's about the same as the comparable average in Waterbury and below Bridgeport, $67,100. That's sobering. It's not nearly possible to afford housing in New Canaan on a salary of $58,500 or even double that if you assume a 2-income household. The people in these jobs are here every day contributing to the high quality of life. It's safe to assume most do not live here, and at least a handful should be able to, along with others who don't work in New Canaan but want the same opportunity. Ultimately, once complete, 30 Parade Hill, like Wilton Road Apartments in Westport, will be sold below cost to a nonprofit who will provide the services part and parcel to the success of this undertaking. I was moved, and I hope you were too, by the testimony of Tara Welch, who spoke about the life-changing opportunity her family has in Westport, and Helen McLinden's testimony about how local residents support the tenants by tutoring, mentoring, and contributing to an Uber fund. Like Westport, New Canaan is a great place to raise a family, and I'm sure you've heard that a person's home zip code is the #1 determinant of their success in life. We may all take that for granted, but it's something I think about every day and is the motivation behind my work on projects like this one. I ask that you vote to approve this project, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay, this application is closed.
I would just really quickly, I know you just said that, but does the applicant consent to extending to June 23rd if needed for deliberations?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioners, deliberation, discussion, consideration. comments, gripes?
Should we first figure out, Dan, who's going to be
Yes,
seated
so-
for deliberation? Because I know some
Agreed.
people have missed and I don't know if everyone's had a chance. to
So-
catch up.
Absent on June 23rd. Like if we vote that night.
Is anyone going to be absent June 23rd? Everyone check their schedules.
Can we take a break for like 4 minutes?
Sure.
Okay.
Just check your schedule for the June 23rd.
I'm open.
We'll come back at 9:15.
Everyone's gonna be back here. We'll come back for 5 minutes, 9:15.
Did you read, John, did you
Okay.
read the circuit?
Well, my age is way older than you.
Okay. Ready, everyone?
Oh, I didn't even get to that.
So before we, before we dig into deliberation and discussion on this application, I just wanted to confirm, we've had a number of meetings on this one. This is the third, is that right?
This is the 4th.
The fourth meeting on this one. Has everyone, who here has not been to every meeting or has not watched the tape?
So I can list it for everyone, just so we're, yeah, so March 9th, Mr. Benton missed the meeting. Did you watch that tape?
I did watch.
Okay. March 30th, Commissioner Engel, was absent.
I watched the tape.
Okay. April 28th, Commissioner Engel and Commissioner Herring were both absent.
Yeah, I watched April 28th
Okay.
tape. So,
I watched the tape.
Okay.
But because I've missed two, if the chairman wants to replace me with somebody who's been here to all three physically, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine, as long as, I mean, we all have
You're
responsibilities.
stating on the record that you've watched the tape.
Yeah, you stated that you watched the tape, so that's fine. Okay, so for this application,
So, I mean, Ms. Larson, I spoke with her on the phone. She's the only one absent. She said that she would watch the recording and is going to be at the meeting on the 23rd. So, you'd have to make the decision now. Are you seating an alternate for her and she's not going to be seated at the 23rd? I wouldn't swap them out.
okay, then we'll leave it with Ms. Larson. Will depend on her to watch the tape of this meeting and then be part of the vote on the 23rd. That's fine. Okay, so it's all regular commission members for the final vote on this one.
Just to clarify, that means alternates should not be deliberating.
You just can't vote.
No, they're not supposed to be deliberating
Not at all?
unless they're seated. They're not.
Oh, it's
supposed to.
during the application process. Yeah. Correct.
Got it.
You're allowed to contribute and ask questions during the application process, but not in deliberation. Okay, commissioners, where would you like to start?
I mean, can we start on I guess let's start on the threshold issue of, the exemption component of 830G.
Yep.
They're here.
Yes.
So just bear with me because, I've tried to think a lot about this and I was the commission member who, did the extra legal research because the applicant did present some stuff about, the 1975, committee meetings regarding the sales tax exemption under the state. But I mean, what we're really talking about is the subsection of 830G that came about in 2000. And I mean, and just to, kind of preface all this, I just, for me personally, I know Mr. Friedman said it about the, all for affordable housing, but we heard a lot of that from, some of the neighbors and kind of how that's cloaked. And, I think he does make a point there. But, kind of what he's doing, he's a unicorn. He's, just in a policy perspective in that when I do these projects in the city, 1,000 units of affordable housing, all 1,000 apartments are getting subsidy. Like it is incredibly rare. Actually, it's never happened. I've never seen it happen where any affordable units are not getting government subsidy to make it happen. So, I mean, I commend him. I commend him what he's doing. Commend him for being charitable and, wish he could have maybe come here under a different vehicle to kind of propose this and maybe used our town zoning regulations to find a place where he could do it. And I think we would have been, more than amenable to do it. But, I'm concerned for a number of reasons, not necessarily his project, but projects and the precedent that this could set, right, because of that component of, one, the tax exemption and the voucher. So let's talk about kind of the tax exemption component. Because like they're coming in under two, as I see it, they're coming under two areas of law that get them to bust through the moratorium that a lot of people spend a lot of time on, putting together. One, they are saying they are a nonprofit. They're getting a sales tax exemption, and that is their vehicle for assisted housing, right? Their government program. And so I tried to do a little research. There was the West Hartford case that was presented by council. There was the Glover case that I think one of the neighbors council, provided in their one of their submissions. And then I found this Office of Legislative Research, the bill analysis done in 2000. When in 2000, as I understood, that's when, one, the moratorium was created, and then these narrow exemptions to the moratorium were passed. And we'll talk about, I think, specifically in that 2000 Office of Legislation research on, and it gives a whole analysis of everything that was changed. And I think on page 5 of what was submitted, I think what's kind of telling there is under this affected project section, there's a sentence that says, the bill exempts from the moratorium applications for proposed development that receive government funds. Mm-hmm. And to me, the word receive government funds stood out because we had debated in prior hearings, what's a government program? Is it a tax exemption? Is it a subsidy? Is it money coming in, right? And for this to be put out by the OLR in 2000 and to say receive government funds, right? And if you're doing legal analysis, you look to the legislative history, they could have easily said, receive government funds and tax abatements, tax exemptions, withholdings as well, but they didn't. They said receive government funds. And that's an affirmative funding. And that's how I read that legislation. So, the argument that I think this tax exemption gets in as a government program isn't really supported by the legislative history in that case. In the two West Hartford cases that they presented, the West Hartford case and the Glover case, I think in the West Hartford case, it was an interest-free loan. In the Glover case, it was a CHFA mortgage. So it's money coming in, right? It's not another way of kind of a withholding or a abatement or an exemption or any sort of, that. And so I think to look at the tax exemption component, this is not receiving government funding, which was the intent of the legislature. So I cannot see how that, qualifies under the statute for the exemption. And the second component, I think we can talk more, and it was kind of, as you saw, my line of questioning and some of our questioning was the vouchers, right? And the tenant-based voucher versus project-based voucher, which I also think kind of goes to the West Hartford case and the Glover case. I think Mr. Rich made a very impassioned speech, and I found everything he said pretty credible in terms of there are vouchers in this bill. These 5 units would get those vouchers pretty readily. They're not flush with it, but they would get, pretty readily. But again, who's to say that's guaranteed? Who's to say, we get a new governor in, January who doesn't really care about affordable housing or finding people homes and cuts the funding, right? And so that funding doesn't exist. And so the guarantee component of it, that this funding is going to be there was also, of a concern to me. But really the fact that it's 5 out of 14, right? So you have these 9 units, and I, credit them for providing a draft restrictive deck, and the draft restrictive deck says, yes, we will guarantee that for perpetuity, all other units will be, affordable. I think that's admirable. But in every other case, in every other project, they were all funding for the project, right? The Glover case was a mortgage for the project. The interest-free loan in the West Hartford case was for the project. It wasn't for a subset of these 5 units or these 3 units or these 4 units, right? And we even asked, I remember when we asked, kind of what's the threshold? Is it 5 units? Is it 4 units? Is it 3? Is it 35%? I don't think we really got a straight answer from the applicant as to what the threshold is, mainly because I don't think, these proposals have really ever been adjudicated by the courts. And so I said, okay, so let's go back to look at the legislative history even more to see what more information I can kind of gather. And I looked at the legislative history in back in 2000, and there was this, the way most legislation runs, right? They do this big study, the big panel of people who are experts in the field. A blue ribbon study, they come up with suggestions. Those suggestions are then taken before, a subcommittee. The subcommittee then turns them into recommendations and then becomes legislation. And that's kind of how it worked. And so this was I think it was one of the housing subcommittees taken, around the time of the bill. They took a lot of public testimony. And, there was a good back and forth. I think it was the town of Trumbull at the time was really concerned about, a lot of the issues that I think we're concerned about. And what I kind of gravitated to is this back and forth on the document that I submitted on, I think it was and it starts at the bottom of page 31 and then rolls into page 32. And what the person, I think might have been a town a chair of the town Planning and Zoning Commission, their concern was kind of, again, the moratorium, and it's these small 40 unit projects, right? Him saying, well, you're allowing these, you're giving us a moratorium, but you're allowing these small 40 unit projects to come through. And then, how can we control how we want our town to look in terms of form and character? And I think he says something like, where 22, 25, 30 units can be built, and this won't get counted towards the moratorium. And this was the person testifying said. And then the chair of the committee, Representative Flaherty, says, thank you for your testimony. I appreciate it. I would just like to make one slight clarification on recommendation 27, which is about the 40 unit, what we're dealing with today. First of all, it's clear that we're talking about assisted developments of 40 units or less. And that was done deliberately, in part because of, quite frankly, from complaints we had gotten from the town of Trumbull, where the set-aside housing seemed to be the most objectionable. And secondly, those units, if they would be developed, would earn points towards a moratorium, another moratorium. So they do count. And so, to me, that is pretty clear that there's no partial assisted housing is 100% in a 40 unit building is 100% affordable. And anything else, and 100% government funded, and anything else
doesn't count.
And so these, 5 unit, and again, like I said, the case law shows there was a loan for the entire project, a mortgage for the entire project. These are funding from the state, from the public sources that affect the entire project, run with the land. They're there forever when moving on. It's not a subsection, because I think for me, it's not a question of affordable housing. It's actually a question of market rate housing. And that I, again, commend the applicant for saying they will do 100% affordable in perpetuity and privately financing these projects, because I like what the Affordable Housing Committee is doing, but taking out taxpayer money as equity and then taking on debt to basically site specific affordable housing, while it's a good tool, it shouldn't be the only tool, and we should promote private dollars for affordable housing in the town. But doing it through this vehicle, I don't think it's supported by the case law. The case law is actually pretty vague on it. I don't think it's supported by the legislative history. And I am afraid that while I commend what Mr. Friedman and his organization are doing, the next guy who comes through is probably, and I've seen some of the people who have been on the video watching, those people who come through are not going to be so generous with the other 9 units and who those are marketed to. So all that said, I don't think that they meet the exemption under 830G. So.
Fair enough.
So I agree with Eric, and there's just a couple of things I would add to what he said. I mean, I think I would imagine part of the intent of having government assistance in an 830G project is that it serves a structural purpose beyond just financial support. It ensures the ongoing participation of a governmental entity with legal authority to monitor and someone with a financial investment sufficient to generate continued affordability compliance independent of our zoning enforcement powers. And so this project, in both of the ways that it's claiming government assistance, is not able to prove any sort of ongoing partnership with a governmental entity. The Department of Revenue Services, as the applicant stated, with the sales and use tax exemption, probably doesn't really have any recourse if they don't end up building a completely affordable project at the end of the day. And with the vouchers, tenant-based vouchers, I think, are tricky in the sense that they're speculative right now. I mean, there is no guarantee, and Eric said this to a certain extent, that these units will ever be filled by people who have vouchers. If the political winds change, if the financial situation changes, that's not guaranteed. And so what I was looking for in this application, and my lines of questioning went towards it, is I want to see a commitment from a governmental entity that will be in this project financially and enforcement and compliance wise for the long haul. And they weren't able to provide that. The Housing Collective, again, a great organization with a great mission, they're not a governmental entity. And in fact, they're not a governmental entity, according to the applicant and the internet, that has the legal authority to commit vouchers to any specific project. The vouchers are issued by the Department of Housing through a third-party subcontractor. So I think that is something that's really missing in this case. And I agree also with what Eric said about the number of units being affordable. I mean, if this is indeed, I'm sorry, not affordable, assisted, if this is a government assistance project, normally you would have I mean, what I've seen traditionally is that you have the CDBG grant, a loan from the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, a low-income housing tax credit that supports the entire project. So therefore the entire project has some level of government assistance in it. Trying to do it with tenant-based vouchers, again, is tricky because the entire project is not then supported with government funds. It's only a partial support. And so I think both of those to me raise some pretty significant questions about what is intended by government assistance under 830G, and questions that I'm not sure, we got clear answers to through this process. So I am on board with what Eric said.
This Commissioner Chris, I concur with my colleagues, Commissioner Nielsen, Commissioner Knowles. I think they're well stated. These are conditions that would need to be met, and particularly the phrase receive government funds. Usually that means the government has funds, the government is transferring those funds to someone else, writing a check, for example, like borrowing from mom and dad. So it's mom and dad's funds that are supporting, let's say, a child, which certainly they can do. And so these would seem to me to be conditions that are necessary preconditions in order to qualify for this section of 830G, which I believe is your argument, Commissioner Knowles. I think it's a very good one. And that is of great concern to me. And I think it's something that I would commend to my fellow commissioners to consider as they reflect upon this application. Thank you.
I know there's been a lot of discussion on other items regarding safety, the parking, traffic, and those are all valid concerns. But I do firmly believe the three issues that Eric and Krista brought up, the sales tax exemption, the 100% assisted housing requirement, and the ongoing government entity partnership are baseline concerns that, you know, will go towards a motion for denial on this one. You know, we heard a lot of promises from the applicant on the parking side of it, just to kind of complete the circle on that, about not planting the driveway or planting the driveway to prevent people from parking in that area and becoming a parking lot in addition to their current one. What we also understand from the applicant and from the site plan is the first 30 feet of that driveway or 40 feet of that driveway is the easement from the street. So it's not in their right or purview to plant that. It's town property. So they have no control over that, as they've stated and admitted. They can't control that. So if that turned into a parking lot, which is fair to say it might, they can't enforce anything. They would depend on the town to enforce it. I think it's a very messy proposal, and very difficult to enforce. That being said, is it a safety issue? I don't know how that would affect, because again, we've done a traffic study, we haven't done a parking study, how that would affect safety of circulation onto Parade Hill and sight lines and everything else, because you can just imagine how congested that would be. But I think the stronger points are the first three that were brought up on the whole structure of this deal and how it doesn't align with the whole government funding aspect of it. Aesthetics aside, I mean, everyone's seen the options that have been presented by the applicant. Each one is slightly different. Are any of them better than the others? Probably not. You know, I think scale is very important when doing developments like this, and this is, you know, ignoring all sense of scale for that area. But again, those are subjective observations that don't, as we've learned from other 830G applications, can't really hold water, right? So I don't want to put this commission or this town in a position where we're moving forward with a precedent-setting application or approval that hasn't been tested or proven. I think that would undermine future development here in this town and open the floodgates for, as Mr. Knowles mentioned, it would open the floodgates for other developers to come in and not be so kind or sensitive to what they were proposing in the town. It's an unfortunate situation we find ourselves in. It's the mess of 830G that we're dealing with on many fronts. But you know, it's something we have to contend with. And I think it's something we have to follow to the letter of the law or letter of the statute as it's written and as it's interpreted, without any gray area here. So anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, in terms of safety and scale, I've driven, I'm sure we all have driven by the site a number of times. And if you look at the site plan, there's a title block that is covering a major curve in Parade Hill. So as you go south of Parade Hill from this site, the road curves and there's almost no sight line. There is actually no sight line as the road goes south. I'm actually looking at a photograph of that right now as it bends around all these major trees that are on the road. There's also on Parade Hill, there are no shoulders. So there's really no place to park a car on Parade Hill. And to create those shoulders, you'd have to, remove, I don't know, tens of trees to do that. And I don't think the town is probably going to get involved in that. My feeling is that this project overwhelms the site and will create safety problems. There's really no place to park. And it is so out of character and scale with the surrounding houses and place that it wants to become part of. So I have major concerns with this, no matter how the buildings may be painted or configured. It's really not an appropriate place to build this project.
Commissioners, anything further?
I just wanted to kind of sort through the conversation I had with Counselor, because I genuinely wanted to approve this. I got excited when they came in the first time and said, we have a solution where we can solve affordable housing at a small scale in residential neighborhoods, because this commission has been beat up with 100-unit scale. And we have been asking for somebody to come and do this. So I don't like being told that, yeah, everybody's for affordable housing, but they're not really. No, I think this commission has approved every one and has given thoughtful consideration to every one of these. And we approved the one on Main Street, Burtis Avenue, each one of these, and the details matter. So this commission is looking for affordable housing solutions. So in that first meeting, I said, great, are you open to amending your application, your design with input from Sarah Carey and the commission? And they said yes. And I think in many respects they did. But that started to break down, which is why I got a little bit excitable tonight when I asked what I thought were legitimate questions that actually have solutions and answers, and I didn't get them. Top 10 reasons I got back on, well, what are we doing about the parking situation were, well, number one, we'll evict them if parking is a problem. And I thought, what kind of public policy is that, where we make a defective development and we bring people in and it's overparked? Well, we just evict them if they have too many cars. That's not going to happen. Number two, public policy is changing in Hartford. Yeah, that may be public policy in Hartford, but I'm worried about New Canaan and that site. And so don't talk to me about averages in Hartford. Talk to me about that site and how many cars we need on that site for that population. Number three, but we did a traffic study. I'm not talking about your traffic study. I'm talking about parking on site and what is the solution when it's inadequately parked. Well, we just disagree with you, was number four. Number five, but it works in Westport. Again, not relevant to this site. I don't care about Westport. I'm giving you the chairman, number six, the chairman of the Housing Authority is wrong about Millport. No, he's not. And people are now parking on the lawns. And if they went to go visit Millport, they'd see that. Number seven, asphalt is expensive. Nobody is allowed to tell me asphalt is expensive as a reason that we can't do a better job designing these projects. So we don't allow homeowners to come tell us that asphalt is expensive. And we shouldn't allow this applicant to say, well, asphalt's expensive, so we're not going to adequately cover the lot. On-street parking is the town's responsibility, so just add it there. It was number 8. There's only 4 cars per hour leaving the site. I don't know how that has anything to do with the parking problem, but it's in their lease. And so that's 10 reasons I got when all I was really looking for was, okay, we hear you, and we'll attempt to work with the town to modify the design to make sure that this is a successful project. That's what I want to hear from applicants. We'll modify the design based on your input, not the housing authority is wrong. And Hartford has a policy about that. So that's why I got excited.
I'm still excited.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Anybody else? Additional comments?
So, I mean, I'll jump in just as I don't want to rush the conversation, of course, but I'll need to draft some sort of resolution between now and June 23rd. So we'll need a little bit more detailed. Right now I'm hearing kind of two paths. There's the, commissioners that feel that it does not meet the definition of assisted housing. We have an active moratorium, therefore this does not comply with our zoning regulations. So you're denied. And then I'm hearing these safety concerns from a few other commissioners, which then starts to bleed into the 830G burden of proof side of things. So I think the commission needs to just, as you continue to talk and debate, clarify your path a little bit more.
Well, I think, if I may, I think.
We have the town attorney on the line to chime in as
Yeah,
needed,
and
but
Nick's on, he can chime in. I think what we've learned from our previous endeavors with 830G applications and how they've been treated by the state is we need to stay as accurate as possible and as focused as possible on how the application does not satisfy the conditions of 830G, and in this case, the moratorium conditions of 830G. Again, going back to what Eric and Krista went through, we want to be clear about how it's not satisfying the funding, the government funding side of it, the assisted housing side of it, and the partnership with a government entity. I think those are the three primary criteria under which you can clearly read through the conditions of the moratorium from the 2000 ruling and how this particular application doesn't satisfy those criteria.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're applying under subsection.
It was
again, right?
Yeah, L2.
Right, L2, and let's get down there. Yeah, L2, right? L2B, right? Other affordable housing applications for assisted housing containing for 40 or fewer dwelling units, right? And assisted housing is a defined term. And they have come with kind of a two-pronged approach. You could either be have the state tax exempt status. One, if you are that, they're claiming that they are within the definition of assisted housing, or two, they are within the definition of assisted housing if they are receiving, the 5 of the 14 vouchers. And so kind of what I said in the beginning, I don't think that the tax exemption is the government program because of the legislative history, because of the word receives government funding. That's not what this is. And then, my argument in the second component is that they aren't, the definition of assisted housing is housing, right? It means housing which is receiving or will receive financial assistance under any governmental program, so forth and so on, right? It's really what's the definition of housing. I didn't find anywhere that it's ever been interpreted under the statute what that word is. I don't think it means partial housing. I think it means 100% government assistance. And I think that's kind of why I don't think their application meets that prong of, or that exemption under L2B or LB2 or whatever it is.
And just to elaborate on that, when I look at the definition of assisted housing under 830G A5, it is, as Eric started to say, housing which is receiving or will receive financial assistance under any governmental program for the construction or substantial rehabilitation of low moderate income housing. So that's not what they're claiming with the vouchers. They're not claiming that they're using the vouchers for the construction of low moderate income housing. The vouchers come on the back end, they're for the operation. So the second part says, and any housing occupied by persons receiving rental assistance. I don't know if it's a mistake, but that's in the present tense. It doesn't say will be, it's pretty clear up above when they're talking about construction that it is receiving or will receive. But it doesn't say in the second part about rental assistance that it's any housing that is occupied or will be occupied. And I don't know if that's intentional, like I said, but to me, we go with that language, there's no housing occupied by persons receiving rental assistance.
And I think some of the case law that has been presented that's out there is for it's a mortgage. It's, interest-free loan, right? That's for the project. It's not for, like Krista said, tenant-based vouchers that run with the tenant, they don't run with the project. So I think there's a separation there.
Commissioner Chris, Mr. Chairman, I would agree with your approach that it turns on specifics of conditions necessary for this exemption of 830G moratorium and specific use and definitions and qualification of specific terms. I mean, we're all planning and zoning commissioners. Words matter. Often it can get very specific words matter. And I think that is the case here. And we need to, I think that approach, I think, is the appropriate one. And so I would concur with that. Regarding safety and soundness, I'm always reminded that the 830G acknowledges that there can be safety and health and safety issues. They acknowledge it. It just has to be to such a level. And is that the case here? So even if there's an acknowledgement there's safety and health issues, they may not be of an adequate level.
Right.
And so that becomes, these are the cards that we've been dealt by Hartford, whether you think those are good cards or not. And so as they say in golf, you got to play it as it lays. And this is the situation. And so I think that the approach you have on these, I guess the 3 criteria, Mr. Chairman, I think are appropriate ones, and I'm very sympathetic to that.
Nick is on. Nick, any guidance or suggestions on this approach?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Good evening, everybody. So, I mean, I can sort of echo Sarah's concerns even after hearing everyone chiming in. I mean, sure, people are considerate towards safety elements of the application, but really what this is it's an application under a specific section of 830G, as we've been discussing, that allows for an exemption from the moratorium. And that really turns on whether or not this proposal fulfills the elements that are necessary for that exemption. The main one being whether this is assisted housing of 40 units or less, the way the language of this moratorium exemption contemplates. And I think for the reasons that we've heard laid out, perhaps focusing, if the commission is inclined to deny for these reasons, focusing more on the defect being that this is not assisted housing as contemplated under the statute, because it is not a proposal comprised of 100% government assisted units. As we've heard, and which I agree with legally, 5 of the 14 have this sort of voucher program. And I mean, Commissioner Nielsen spoke to the vagaries of the language and the insecurity that we have right now, even at the second piece of that assisted housing definition, that does the commission feel that there really is some level of trust that a government entity has bought into this for the voucher program and will continue to? So I guess what I'm saying is, in terms of I think I can certainly assist Sarah in crafting a draft resolution for denial. I think the resolution should focus more on the reasons we've heard on why this is not assisted housing. Those three sort of buckets that we heard Dan talk about earlier, why the sales exemption does not constitute government funding, why the units are not 100% assisted units, and that in and of itself sort of kicks things out, and that why there isn't really ongoing government buy-in. I suppose we could reference the public safety and parking concerns, but I think the crux of the decision from a legal perspective is going to turn on why the higher standard under 830G would not apply to this, and that's because we have a moratorium. And the exemption to the moratorium would not apply, so therefore, under your local regulations, this application does not warrant an approval.
Thank you, Nick. Commissioners, anything further to add? Okay.
I mean, one thing I think that I think is worth pointing out or highlighting is that, again, I like the design. I think, not having I think it's an efficient design. I think the issue for me is that if this assisted quality is kind of a backdoor to avoiding the moratorium limit, it really undermines the town's interest in funding the moratorium investment.
Correct.
Because the town just spent $76 million on Riverwood, and they're developing, we just had an affordable housing workshop, and we just put in inclusionary housing into our zoning for anything more than 4 units. And if the bar is fuzzy as to what is assisted living, assisted building, then it really undermines the town incentive to continue to release those units at Riverwood. So I think there is some kind of fiscal unintentional consequences of being unclear on what assisted is, because it undermines that investment.
Well, I would disagree. I don't think it's unclear what 100% assisted is.
No, what I'm saying is that that's why I think we need to be strict as to what is assisted. I think if we were to look favorably on this application in the muddiness as to what is assisted, it would make it muddier and then undermine the moratorium strategy and moratorium investment.
Agreed.
To increase housing.
Agreed. Okay, Sarah. Sounds like we have a consensus here on how to proceed.
It does, yes.
What do we need to do tonight? Knowing that you're going to go away and draft a denial, and with the assistance of Nick and input as necessary, do we need to do anything tonight?
I think we're covered at this point. I think, we have the recording, obviously, so I can reference everything that's been stated on the record to incorporate that into a written resolution. I think I'm good as far as drafting goes. If any, we want to make sure the motion would carry in theory. So if there's anyone that disagrees with the approach, they should
let's vote on it.
Speak up now.
Well, we can vote on it.
Yeah.
Straw poll, or we'll call a vote. Do I have a motion to?
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't
that?
do an official motion or anything like that. I would just do a straw poll if you feel inclined to, but it's not even necessary.
Show of hands.
What's the question again?
What's the question?
I would agree with the path forward for the denial resolution on the grounds of it doesn't meet assisted housing.
Just want to make sure we have consensus. Show of hands, we're moving forward in that direction. Yes, unanimous. Okay.
I was on Zoom, but
yeah,
it was too dark to see your hand.
There.
Okay. And then we'll review that and vote on it at next meeting.
June 23rd.
June 23rd.
Remember, we changed our calendar a few months ago. So it was previously June 30th, but it's been June 23rd for a while now.
It's fine. Okay,
July.
it's a week before.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to administrative actions.
Okay.
First one we have up on the agenda here is clarification of half-story definition. Want to explain?
Yes, so we have a fun situation. Coincidentally, I've now had multiple architects reach out to me about this before this even got posted on the agenda, but we have this definition for what a half story is, and specifically attics. When are they considered a half story? And we have this wonderful graphic in the zoning regulations that, shows a peaked roof. And, the crux of the question is, we have this applicant who has sent me this for a house on East Avenue. And their argument is, they want to build this, have this top floor be considered a half story, even though it's a flat roof, because in theory, if you did a peaked roof, the volume of the story would be the exact same. But there's a gray area in our zoning regulations based on the way the language is written, which I can pull up on the screen and walk you through it. But I mean, the principle in general is that the volume of that top story is the same. It's just a flat roof instead of a peaked roof. And, it would meet our flat roof height requirements, which are lower than if it was a peaked roof. But, before I go and rubber stamp this and potentially open up Pandora's box, I wanted to chat with you all. So again, I can zoom in a little bit. My personal initial interpretation is that no, we shouldn't allow flat roofs like this to be considered a half story. Particularly because of this language in this first bullet point. It says that, essentially the floor area of this attic story is 50% or less of the attic floor area under that roof. So I would interpret that to be in this situation, that's 100% under that roof.
Mm-hmm. And it specifically is referencing attic, not story, or partial story.
So it's story comma half, and then it just explains.
It also seems to open up the balcony situation. I'm assuming that development would leverage the roof outside that half story as a balcony.
No, they wouldn't be permitted to, because then you'd have to put fencing up and they're maxing the height, and they can't have anything taller on top of the building. So it would not open up that.
Okay.
And again, the arguments, what?
Attic defined?
Not aside from this.
Nobody looking at that picture could conclude that what we really meant was, well, if you occupy 50% of the attic, well, then it counts. I mean, the picture is pretty clear that it's not a flat roof, and it's not a way to get a flat roof if all I'm occupying is 50% of the floor area. I mean, we didn't write the regulation around floor area. We wrote the regulation and we drew a picture. And this just seems like totally bizarre. And why are we even spending time on this? I mean, but that's just how I feel.
Well, we're spending time on it because multiple builders have come to Sarah asking for it.
Can we do flat roof to get around your regulation?
Basically.
That's what I thought.
And if I don't come to you, I get appealed, and then ZBA decides how to interpret your regulations instead of you. So
I think it's pretty clear from the text and the diagram. We're referring to an attic space, not a half, not a story that is half the floor plate, but it's a third floor story.
Okay, so the regulations interpretation is that half stories have to have peaked roofs to be considered a half story. That's the crux of the question.
Should we amend our regulations in a couple weeks to make sure that we make
To
this
clarify,
even
yeah. I mean, you have to remember the sky is the limit for a lot of, the developments that we see day to day in our building permits for, residents in town, and our regulations written 20 years ago. The limit then was lower than what it is now, just in the sense of what people come up with to do on their properties and whatnot. And, we get asked challenging questions because people want to do very unique things on their properties in this town.
I think the current regulation is clear in defining this half story being associated with an attic space with sloped roof rafters, sloped roof,
Okay,
period.
perfect. That's all I needed. Thank you. And I agree with the interpretation, but
Grace Farms court schedule for a period of June 1st through August 31st, 2026.
so last month they weren't quite ready to submit their whole summer schedule, so you had only approved their May schedule. This summer schedule is the exact same as the May schedule. It's just been confirmed. They were waiting, I think, on one entity to confirm with them. So it's no different than what you approved in May or for May.
And is it the same level of intensity of use as last year?
Relatively similar across, the years that we've been approving this.
Gotcha. Okay. Do we need to do anything with this?
Yeah, we could just have a motion and an approval.
Motion to approve Grace Farms court schedule.
Commissioner Chris, so move.
Second, anyone?
I'll second.
All right, call to vote. Dan Radman, I vote yes. Krista Nielsen,
Yes.
John Chris.
Yes.
Chris Herring,
Yes.
John Engel,
Yes.
Alan Swerdlow,
Yes.
Tom Benton,
Yes.
Eric Knowles,
Yes.
and Megan Mention. Oh, Christina's on?
Yes.
Thank you, Christina.
Thanks, Christina.
Okay. And then second to last but not least, 751 Weed Street, and I'll try to keep this as official as possible. Per the order in the memorandum of decision from the state of Connecticut dated July 1st, 2025, approval of the regulation amendment petition for change in zoning boundary and site plan for an 830G set-aside development of 102 dwelling unit multifamily development located at 751 Weed Street, map 32, block 20, lot 944 in the 1 acre zone. So everyone knows the history of this. And again, for this particular application, we're seated with all the regular members. We are calling this to a vote. We are required to approve this. It's been remanded by the judge up in Hartford. And many of you may have read the 98-page ruling from last year, but basically it's approved as submitted to move forward.
And I'm happy to explain, there were a few changes to the site plan that were reviewed by the town engineer, along with myself over the last summer to be consistent with the remand that was ordered by the judge back in July of last year. So at one point, the applicant had proposed a sidewalk that would connect 751 Weed Street to the Kimberly Place sidewalk that then, connects you to Elm Street and the train station. Ultimately, the judge ordered that be removed. So that has been removed. The judge also ordered that the sewer connection be located through the private sewer easement that runs through 313 Elm Street rather than connected onto the street. So that has been relocated to go through the private easement as the previous house had done. And then there was a slight update to the placement of level spreaders, which was part of the drainage system that had to be relocated. And that was reviewed in accordance with the town engineer. So now the drainage system complies with the town's drainage policy that was in effect in 2022 when the application was initially proposed. Other than that, it's the same 102 unit application that was submitted in 2022 and resubmitted in 2023.
Okay. And part of this approval, just to be clear, you're familiar with the application, but there are a couple of nuances here. The text amendment to create the transit-oriented multifamily zone, that's part of the approval. Rezoning of 751 Weed Street from the 1 acre zone into the TOMZ. And the updated site plan for 102 development as shown on the site plan review by DeAndrea, et cetera, dated August 15, 2025. All of those are also part of this approval process. As we know, and as I've made clear, there's been ongoing discussions with the applicant and the interveners, the neighbors that are part of the intervener group. That has been going on for a number of months with potential alternatives and compromises discussed and reviewed. But there was no agreement made, or they did not come to an agreement as to what a potential alternative could be. And because of that, we are forced to approve the 102. And that leaves the applicant clear and free to start building the 102 units as submitted. So we are not deliberating this. It's kind of a fait accompli. We are merely executing the court's orders to provide a formal approval of the application that we originally denied. So, do I have a motion for approval?
Mr. Chairman, I will do it. I hereby move that we approve the applications as you have just stated and Ms. Carey have stated in the record.
Microphone on this time and do it again.
Sorry. I will do this. Mr. Chairman, again, court order, I move that we approve this application along the lines that you have stated and Ms. Carey have stated.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Call to vote. Dan Radman, I vote yes. Krista Nielsen,
Yes.
John Kriz,
excuse me, yes.
Chris Herring,
Yes.
John Engel,
No.
Christina Larson. Christina, you still there?
I barely by court order, yes.
Alan Swerdlow,
Yes.
Tom Benton,
Yes.
Eric Knowles.
Yes.
And just for the record, this is an incredibly hard vote and decision to make for this commission. I think we've all endured 4 years of agony over the 830G application, the specific one, as well as the Hill Street and the Main Street one. And it's just unfortunate that an acceptable compromise was not able to be met. That's all we have for tonight. Last order of business, the minutes from the last month's April 28th meeting.
I'll move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second, show of hands from approval of minutes. You're not approving the minutes?
I don't think I was there. Remember, she said I was.
Oh, you weren't there? Yeah, you're right. You don't have to. Minutes approved. Thank you, everyone.